Somewhere inside every restless mind, there is a place that has not been touched by noise, not because life has been easy, but because peace is there, waiting beneath the fear, the grief, the memories, and the questions that refuse to leave. Buddhist stories have always spoken to people in this place, people who are tired of carrying yesterday, people who smile in public and ache in silence, people who want to forgive, let go, breathe, and feel whole. 30 of those journeys are ahead of you. 30 troubled minds, 30 wounded hearts, 30 doors. These are not stories about escaping pain. They are stories about meeting it gently and discovering that healing begins when we stop running from ourselves. We begin with a monk who believed peace meant having no thoughts. Wherever you are right now, this is for you. He had left his home, shaved his head, put on a simple robe, and entered a quiet monastery beside the mountains. He thought silence would be waiting there. Instead, he found noise, not outside, inside. The monastery was peaceful. A wooden bell woke the monks before sunrise. Mist rested over the trees. Birds moved gently through the branches. But inside the monk's mind, nothing was gentle. Old conversations returned. Faces appeared without being invited. Small mistakes became great failures. Things he should have said came back with perfect words, always too late. Things he feared might happen arrived as if they had already happened. He sat on his cushion and tried to force every thought away. The harder he tried to make the mind silent, the louder it became. We recognize this. Many of us believe peace will come when the mind finally obeys us, when the questions stop, when memory stops returning, when worry becomes tired and leaves. But the mind does not become quiet because it is threatened. It becomes afraid, and fear creates more noise. The monk began to believe he was failing. Around him, the other monks looked calm. Their backs were straight, their faces were soft. He imagined their minds were empty. One evening, the monk went to the old teacher. "My mind will not stop," he said. "What does it do?" the teacher asked. "It remembers, worries, judges, plans, and repeats." "And what do you do?" "I fight it." The teacher nodded. "Then your mind is doing one thing, and you are adding another." The monk did not understand. The teacher led him to a stream behind the monastery. Rain had fallen, and the water moved quickly. Leaves and twigs passed over the stones. "Make the water still," the teacher said. The monk placed his hands into the stream. He tried to block it. The water broke around his fingers. He moved stones into its path. The stream became rougher. Mud rose from the bottom. "I cannot," the monk said. The teacher removed the stones. "Now do nothing." They waited. Slowly, the mud sank. The leaves passed. The water cleared by itself. "You do not calm water by fighting every movement," the teacher said. "You let movement complete itself." The next morning, the monk returned to his cushion. The thoughts came. He remembered an argument with his brother. He feared his father might die before he returned home. He wondered whether leaving had been selfish. His body prepared to fight. Then he remembered the stream. For the first time, he did not tell the thoughts to leave. He named them softly, remembering, worrying, judging. Then he returned to the breath. This sounds small. It is not. To notice a thought without becoming its servant is one of the quiet freedoms taught in Buddhism. A thought can appear without becoming a command. A memory can return without becoming the present. A fear can speak without becoming the future. The monk practiced each day. At first, he judged every meditation: good, bad, peaceful, restless. Then he noticed that judging was also a thought. "Judging," he whispered, and he returned to the breath. Weeks passed. He did not become a man without thoughts. He became a man who was no longer frightened by them. That was different. He understood that the mind produces thoughts as the sky produces clouds. The cloud comes, the cloud changes, the cloud passes. The sky does not chase it. This is mindful awareness, not destroying the mind, not emptying it by force, seeing clearly what is present without holding it too tightly. The monk had believed his thoughts revealed who he was. Now he saw that thoughts were visitors. But a visitor is not the house. This changed the way he lived. We all know what it is to be carried away by thought. One sentence becomes an argument that never happened. One mistake becomes a ruined future. One silence becomes rejection. One memory becomes a room we cannot leave. The mind can build a world from almost nothing and make the body suffer inside it. Buddhism does not ask us to hate the mind. It asks us to understand it. The answer is patient seeing. This thought is here. This feeling is here. This breath is here too. For the first time, he understood that calm did not require an empty mind. Years later, younger monks came to him and said, "My mind will not stop." He never told them to silence it. He took them to the stream. He waited until the mud settled. Then he said, "Peace is not the absence of thought. Peace is the end of fighting every thought that appears." That night, a storm crossed the mountains. Rain struck the roof. Then the temple bell rang once. Every monk heard it. But a grieving traveler outside the gate heard something more. He heard a reason to keep walking. And his story begins with that bell. The bell rang after the storm. Outside the monastery gate, a traveler stopped walking. He had been moving through the rain for hours. His clothes were heavy. His feet were covered in mud. His heart was carrying something heavier than both. The bell rang again, deep, slow, clear. The sound passed through the wet trees and entered the darkness where he stood. For the first time that night, the traveler lifted his head. He did not know who had rung the bell. He did not know what waited behind the gate. He only knew the sound made him feel less alone. So he stepped forward. The monk from the stream opened the gate. He saw a young man standing in the rain. The traveler looked tired, but not only from walking. Some tiredness comes from the road. Other tiredness comes from carrying pain for too long. The monk understood the difference. "Come inside," he said. The traveler entered without speaking. The monk gave him dry clothes, warm tea, and a place beside the fire. The traveler held the cup with both hands. His fingers shook. The monk did not ask questions. He knew some pain closes when it is questioned too quickly, so they sat in silence. The storm moved away from the mountain. The rain became softer. After a long time, the traveler spoke. "My wife died 3 months ago." The monk remained still. "I thought I could continue," the traveler said. "People told me time would help. They told me to be strong. They told me she would want me to live." He looked into the fire. "But every morning I wake up and forget for one moment. Then I remember again." The monk listened. "That moment is the worst," the traveler said. "It feels like losing her again every day. There are pains that arrive once. There are other pains that return each morning. Grief is often like this. It does not knock once and leave. It enters through familiar places, an empty chair, a quiet room, a cup no one uses, a name the mouth still wants to call." The traveler said he had left his village because every road reminded him of her. He believed distance might weaken the memories. But memory had followed him. It had crossed every hill. It had slept beside him. It had walked in the rain. "I want my mind to stop," he said. The monk looked toward the bell outside. "Did you hear the bell tonight?" "Yes." "What happened to the sound?" The traveler listened. There was only rain now. "It faded." "Did you force it to fade?" "No." "Did you chase it away?" "No." "It was heard," the monk said. "Then it passed." The traveler frowned. "My grief does not pass." "It changes," the monk said. The traveler wanted to disagree. His pain felt permanent. It felt older than the mountain and heavier than the sky. But the monk did not tell him that his pain was small. He did not say that others had suffered more. He did not ask him to be grateful. He only said, "Even grief changes from breath to breath. Look carefully." The traveler closed his eyes. At first, there was only pain. Then he noticed the warmth of the cup, the fire against his face, the sound of rain touching the roof. His grief was still there, but it was not the only thing there. This is one of the quiet truths of Buddhist practice. Pain can be present without becoming the whole world. The mind says, there is only sorrow. Awareness looks again. There is sorrow. There is also breath. There is also warmth. There is also sound. There is also this moment, still moving. The monk took the traveler outside. The storm had broken several branches. Leaves covered the courtyard. Water ran between the stones. The temple bell moved gently in the wind. "Ring it," the monk said. The traveler pulled the rope. The bell sounded across the monastery. The note was strong at first, then softer, then gone. "Again," the monk said. The traveler rang it again. This time he listened more carefully. He heard the beginning, he heard the middle, he heard the ending. "What did you notice?" the monk asked. The sound stayed for a moment, and then it disappeared. The monk nodded. "Everything that begins changes. Everything that changes ends in its present form." The traveler looked at him. "Are you saying love ends?" "No," the monk said. "I am saying the form of love changes." The traveler's eyes filled with tears. The monk continued. "When she was alive, love had a voice, a face, and hands you could hold. Now love has become memory, longing, and pain. You are suffering because you are asking love to return to its old form." The traveler began to cry, not loudly. The tears came slowly, as if they had waited a long time for permission. The monk stayed beside him. There was nothing to repair in that moment. There was only something to feel. Buddhism does not teach that we should become cold. It does not ask us to stop loving so that loss cannot hurt us. It teaches us to see that everything we love will change, not so we love less. So we hold more gently. The traveler had been fighting grief because he believed accepting it meant accepting that his wife was gone, but the truth did not depend on his acceptance. She was already gone. His resistance was only creating a second wound. The first wound was loss. The second was the demand that loss should not have happened. Many of us live inside this second wound. We argue with what has already occurred. We replay the final conversation. We imagine the different choice. We ask why life did not protect what we loved. The mind believes that if it thinks long enough, it may discover a door back into the past. There is no such door. There is only the present asking to be entered. The traveler stayed at the monastery for several days. Each evening he rang the bell. Each evening he listened until the sound disappeared. His grief did not vanish, but it became less solid. It moved through him like weather. Some mornings were heavy, some afternoons were gentle. Sometimes he smiled and then felt guilty. The monk told him, "A moment of peace is not a betrayal of the dead." The traveler carried those words carefully. On the seventh morning, he prepared to leave. "Where will you go?" the monk asked. "I do not know." The monk smiled. "Then walk until the next honest step appears." Before leaving, the traveler rang the bell one final time. The sound crossed the trees. Far down the road, another stranger heard it. She was following the sound toward the monastery, and she carried a question no one had been able to answer. Far down the road, another stranger heard the bell. She stopped beneath a wet tree and listened. The sound came again, deep, slow, distant. She had been walking without knowing where she was going. Now, for the first time, the road seemed to be calling her somewhere. She followed the sound. Her name was Suri. For many years she had lived in a village beside a wide river. She had a husband, 2 children, a small home, and a garden filled with white flowers. From the outside, her life looked complete. But inside, she carried a question. Why could she not feel happy when she had everything people said should make her happy? She felt ashamed of this. Whenever sadness came, she looked at her children and told herself she had no right to feel it. Whenever emptiness appeared, she remembered her home and called herself ungrateful. She smiled when others looked at her. Then she became quiet when no one was near. We recognize this. Sometimes pain does not come from losing something. Sometimes it comes from not understanding why what we have is not enough to make us peaceful. This kind of suffering is difficult to explain. People may look at our lives and say, "What more do you want?" But the heart is not healed by being told that it should not hurt. Suri had tried to silence the question. She worked harder. She cared for everyone. She kept the house clean. She planted more flowers. She attended every village gathering. Still, the emptiness followed her. One morning, she left home before sunrise. She told her family she needed a few days to visit her sister, but she did not go to her sister's village. She followed the river, then the road, then the sound of a bell after the storm. When Suri reached the monastery, the traveler who had lost his wife was standing near the gate. He was preparing to leave. For a moment, they looked at each other. He saw the tiredness in her face. She saw the sadness in his. Neither asked what the other had lost. Some people recognize suffering before a word is spoken. "The monks will receive you," he said. Suri looked toward the bell. "Did that sound bring you here too?" The traveler nodded. "It brought me back to the road." He walked away. Suri watched until he disappeared between the trees. Then the monk opened the gate. "What are you searching for?" he asked. "I do not know." The monk smiled gently. "That is an honest beginning." He gave her tea and invited her to sit beneath a wooden shelter. For a long time, Suri said nothing. Then everything came out. She told him about her family, her home, her garden, her strange sadness. "I have no reason to be unhappy," she said. The monk looked at the rain falling from the roof. "Must pain have permission before it can be felt?" Suri lowered her eyes. "I should be grateful." "You can be grateful and still be tired." "I love my family." "You can love people and still feel lost." "I have a good life." "A good life can still contain suffering." These words entered her slowly. For years, she had believed only one feeling could be true at a time. If she loved her family, she could not feel trapped. If she was grateful, she could not feel empty. If others suffered more, she could not admit her own pain. But the human heart can carry many truths together. Buddhist wisdom does not ask us to deny what is present. It asks us to see it clearly. The monk took Suri to the garden. The storm had damaged several plants. Some flowers were bent, some had lost their petals. One white flower remained closed. Suri touched it. "Why has this one not opened?" "It may not be ready," the monk said. "Will sunlight make it open?" "Perhaps." "What if it never opens?" "Then it will still have been a flower." Suri looked at him. The monk continued, "You have spent years trying to force your heart to become what you believe it should be." Suri felt something inside her become still. "You tell yourself to be happy, to be grateful, to stop questioning. But the heart does not open because it is ordered. What should I do?" "Listen before you command." That evening, Suri sat alone. At first, she heard only the usual thoughts. "You are selfish. You should go home. You are hurting your family." Then she listened beneath them. There was another voice. It was softer. "I am tired. Not tired of her husband. Not tired of her children. Tired of disappearing inside the needs of everyone else." For years she had served her family with love. But slowly she had stopped asking what was happening inside her. She had become useful to everyone and unknown to herself. The sadness was not proof that she did not love her life. It was a message that she had abandoned part of herself inside it. This is why silence can frighten us. It allows the unheard parts of us to speak. We fill our days with duties, voices, screens, and movement. Then we wonder why we feel far from ourselves. The answer is often simple. We have not been listening. Suri stayed for 3 days. She walked through the garden. She ate in silence with the monks. She watched thoughts come without punishing herself for having them. On the final morning, the closed flower opened. Suri smiled. The monk noticed. "Did you make it open?" "No." "Did you shame it?" "No." "You allowed time, light, and space." Suri understood. Healing was not always something she had to force. Sometimes it began when she stopped attacking herself for not being healed already. Before leaving, she asked the monk, "What should I tell my family?" "The truth," he said. "Tell them you love them. Tell them you also need to hear your own heart." Suri bowed. Then she followed the road home. But the storm had destroyed the bridge near the river. A villager told her there was another path through the hills. "It is longer," he warned, "and part of the road is broken." Suri looked toward the mountains. At the end of that broken road stood an old temple, and inside it waited a lesson she could not have learned anywhere else. Suri took the road through the hills. It was narrow and covered with stones. Rain had washed away part of the path. Tree roots rose from the ground like old hands. More than once she thought of turning back, but there was no bridge behind her, only the broken road ahead. We all meet roads like this. A plan fails. A relationship changes. A body becomes weak. A door closes without explanation. Suddenly, the way we expected to travel is gone. We stand before what remains and call it wrong because it is not the road we chose. Suri walked slowly. By evening, the sky darkened again. She saw a small temple at the top of the hill. Its roof was damaged. One wall had cracked. The stone steps were uneven. It did not look holy. It looked forgotten. Still, smoke rose from a small opening. Someone was inside. Suri entered. An old nun sat near a clay lamp. Her robe was faded. Her hair was white. She was repairing a broken wooden window. "May I stay until morning?" Suri asked. "You may stay until you no longer need to," the nun replied. Suri sat near the lamp. The temple was unlike the monastery. There were no clean paths, no polished floors. Rain entered through part of the roof. A broken statue rested beside the wall. "Why has no one repaired this place?" Suri asked. The nun looked around. "I repair what I can, but the temple is falling apart." "So am I," the nun said, "yet both of us are still useful." Suri did not know whether the nun was joking. Then the old woman laughed. Her laughter was warm and without shame. During the night, the wind became strong. Water dripped into the room. Suri moved her sleeping mat. Then she moved it again. Finally, she became angry. "How can you live here?" The nun placed a bowl beneath the leaking roof. "Like this. That does not stop the rain." "No. It only catches the water." "Yes." Suri looked at her. The nun said, "You are angry because you believe peace requires perfect conditions." The words landed sharply. Suri thought about her life. She had believed she would be peaceful when everyone was satisfied, when the house was quiet, when her duties were finished, when no one needed anything from her. That day had never come. There was always another task, another problem, another reason to delay rest. The nun pointed to the broken statue. "Do you think the Buddha is less present because the stone is cracked?" Suri looked at it. The face was damaged. One hand was missing, but something about it still felt calm. "No," she said. "Then why do you believe calm cannot exist inside a cracked life?" The room became quiet. This is one of the lessons suffering teaches slowly. We wait for life to become whole before allowing ourselves peace. But life is always opening and breaking. Something begins while something else ends. A child is born while an old person dies. A friendship grows while another fades. The body heals in one place and weakens in another. If peace depends on nothing being broken, peace will never come. Buddhist practice begins inside the life we actually have, not the life we expected, not the life we will have after every problem is solved. This breath, this room, this unfinished moment. The nun gave Suri a small broom. "Sweep the floor," she said. "In the dark." "The floor is still here in the dark." Suri swept. Dust moved beneath the broom. Rain fell into the bowls. Wind passed through the broken window. Nothing became perfect, but as Suri worked, her anger softened. The floor grew cleaner. The lamp remained lit. The temple held them through the night. In the morning, sunlight entered through the crack in the wall. It formed a bright line across the floor. Suri stared at it. The nun followed her eyes. "The crack lets the light in," Suri said. "The wall did not break for that purpose," the nun replied, "but the light entered anyway. This matters. Not everything painful happens for a reason. Buddhist wisdom does not ask us to pretend every wound was necessary. Some things are simply painful. Some losses are unfair. Some roads break beneath us. But even when suffering has no good reason, wisdom may still enter through the opening it leaves. We do not have to call the breaking good. We only have to notice what has become visible because of it. Before Suri left, she helped the nun repair the window. They worked without speaking. When the final piece was in place, Suri asked, "Will you repair the whole temple?" "No." "Why not?" "I may die before it is finished." Suri looked concerned. The nun smiled. "A task does not become worthless because we cannot complete it." She handed Suri a small piece of wood. "Take this." "What is it?" "Part of the broken window." Suri held it carefully. "Remember that something can be damaged and still offer shelter." Suri bowed. Then she continued along the road. Near midday, she saw a woman walking toward the temple. The woman carried a large basket on her back. It looked painfully heavy. Suri stepped aside to let her pass. But as the woman came closer, Suri noticed the basket held no food, no clothes, no tools, only old objects covered in dust. The woman was not carrying supplies. She was carrying yesterday. The woman stopped beside Suri. She bent forward beneath the weight of the basket. Her face was tired. Sweat ran down her neck. "Is the temple far?" she asked. "Not far," Suri said, "but the road is steep." The woman closed her eyes. "I do not know whether I can continue." Suri looked into the basket. There was a child's shoe, a cracked cup, several letters, a wooden spoon, a piece of blue cloth, a dried flower, objects that seemed too small to explain such a heavy burden. "What are you carrying?" Suri asked. "My life," the woman replied. Her name was Anala. Years earlier, a fire had destroyed her home. Her husband had died before the fire. Her only son had grown up and moved to another country. The objects in the basket were all she had kept from the life that no longer existed. She carried them wherever she went. At first, the basket had been small. Then she added more. A stone from the old garden, a broken door handle, her husband's sandals, her son's childhood bowl. Every object became proof that the past had been real. Anala feared that if she released anything, she would lose the people connected to it. So she carried everything. We understand this. Not everyone carries the past in a basket. Some carry it in the mind. A sentence someone said many years ago. A mistake that cannot be changed. A love that ended. A version of ourselves that no longer exists. We return to these things because letting go feels like betrayal. We believe pain is the final thread connecting us to what was lost. If we stop hurting, perhaps it will mean it did not matter, so we continue carrying. Suri offered to help. She lifted the basket. It was heavier than she expected. "How have you carried this for so long?" "One step at a time," Anala said. They walked toward the temple together. When the old nun saw them, she said nothing. She looked at the basket. Then she placed another bowl beneath the leaking roof. Anala lowered the basket with great care. She removed each object and arranged it on the floor. She told the story behind everyone. The cracked cup had belonged to her husband. The small shoe was her son's first. The blue cloth had hung beside the kitchen window. The letters had never been answered. The nun listened. When Anala finished, she asked, "Which of these objects contains your husband?" Anala looked offended. "None of them." "Which contains your son?" "None." "Which contains your old home?" Anala became angry. "You do not understand. These are all I have left." The nun nodded. "They are what remains. But are they what you loved?" Anala looked at the cracked cup. She remembered her husband drinking from it. His hands, his voice, the way he laughed when tea was too hot. The cup was not the love. It was only a door memory used. The nun picked up the child's shoe. "Does carrying this make your son a child again?" "No." "Does it bring him nearer?" "No." "What does it do?" Anala's eyes filled with tears. "It makes me feel that he has just left." There it was, the truth beneath the basket. She did not carry the objects to remember. She carried them to prevent time from moving. But time had moved anyway. Her son had grown. Her husband had died. Her home had burned. Her refusal had not protected the past. It had only made the present difficult to carry. This is attachment, not love itself. Attachment is the demand that what changes should remain as it was. Love allows life to move. Attachment grips the old form until the hands begin to ache. The nun did not tell Anala to throw everything away. That would have been another form of force. Instead, she placed 2 mats on the floor. "Put on one mat what helps you remember with love," she said. "Put on the other what keeps you trapped in pain." Anala began slowly. She kept the cracked cup. It brought warmth. She kept one letter. It reminded her to speak before words became too late. She released the stone, the broken handle, the dried flower, the sandals her husband had never worn in his final years. With each object she placed aside, she cried. Suri stayed beside her. Letting go is rarely clean. The hand opens slowly. The heart protests. The mind says, "Keep it. You may need this pain later." But something else begins to speak. You can remember without carrying everything. By evening, the basket was almost empty. Anala lifted it. For the first time in years, she stood straight. She looked surprised. "The basket was not forcing me to carry it," she said. "No," the nun replied. "Your fear was." They burned nothing. They buried nothing. The nun placed the released objects in an empty room at the back of the temple. "You may visit them tomorrow," she said. "See whether they still own you." Anala slept deeply that night. In the morning she chose the cup, the letter, and the small shoe. Everything else remained. She left the temple carrying a lighter basket. Suri continued home, but the empty room stayed in her mind. There had been something unusual about it. The nun had opened the door only slightly. Inside, Suri had seen many objects left by many people. She had also seen a second door at the far end. It was closed. When Suri asked where it led, the nun's face changed. "There is someone in the village below who has refused to enter that room for 20 years, she said. Suri looked down the hill. A small house stood alone beside the trees. Inside lived a woman who could face every part of life except one. The woman's name was Mira. She lived alone in the house below the temple. Every morning she swept the front step. Every afternoon she worked in a field. Every evening she lit a lamp beside the window. The villagers respected her. They called her strong. They did not know there was one room in her house she had not entered for 20 years. The door remained closed. No one was allowed to touch it. When Suri came down from the temple, she found Mira pulling weeds from the garden. "The nun said you might give me water," Suri said. Mira looked toward the hill. "She sends strangers when she wants to disturb my peace. Then I can leave." Mira studied her. "No, come inside." The house was clean and quiet. There were only 2 rooms. One door stood open. The other was covered with dust. Suri tried not to stare. Mira gave her water. "You want to ask about the door?" Suri remained silent. "Everyone does." "What is inside?" "My daughter's room." Suri placed the cup down carefully. Mira's daughter had died when she was 12. A sudden illness had taken her within 3 days. After the funeral, Mira closed the bedroom door. She told herself she would open it when she was ready. 1 week passed, then 1 month, then 1 year. After several years, the room became more than a room. It became the place where grief waited. Mira feared that opening the door would release everything she had survived by keeping outside. So she worked, she planted, she helped others, she became strong. But strength built around avoidance is not peace. It is a wall. Walls can protect us for a time. Then they become the place where we are trapped. "Why has the nun kept objects in the temple room?" Suri asked. "She says people need somewhere to leave what they cannot carry." "And the second door?" Mira's face hardened. "It connects to my daughter's room." Years earlier, the temple and the house had belonged to one family. A narrow passage joined them. The old nun had entered the room from the temple side to clean it. But she never moved anything. She waited for Mira. "I will not enter," Mira said. "Why?" "Because I know what will happen." "What will happen?" "I will become the woman I was 20 years ago." This is how memory frightens us. We believe feeling an old pain will erase all the years that came after it. We think grief will swallow us whole, but pain remembered is not pain repeated. The mind may return, the body may shake, the tears may come, but we return with something we did not have before. We return with the person we became. Suri stayed with Mira through the afternoon. They spoke about small things, the weather, the field, the broken bridge. As evening approached, Suri stood to leave. Mira looked at the closed door. "Did the nun tell you to make me open it?" "No." "What did she tell you?" "Only that someone had refused to enter." Mira almost smiled. "She knows I hate being commanded." Suri nodded. "So do I." They sat again. After darkness came, Mira lit the lamp. She carried it toward the door, then stopped. Her hand rested on the handle. "I cannot." Suri said nothing. Mira stepped back, then forward, then back again. This was not weakness. Courage does not always move in a straight line. Sometimes courage reaches for the door and withdraws. Sometimes it needs another breath, another night, another person standing nearby without pushing. Mira touched the handle again. What if the pain is still there? "It probably is," Suri said. Mira looked at her. Suri continued, "But so are you." Mira opened the door. Dust moved through the lamplight. The room was small. A narrow bed stood against the wall. A red ribbon rested on a table. There were drawings of birds. A wooden doll sat beside the pillow. Mira made one sound, not a word, something deeper. She stepped inside. Her knees weakened. Suri caught her arm, but Mira pulled away gently. "No," she said. "Let me stand here." She walked toward the bed. She touched the blanket, then the doll, then the red ribbon. For 20 years, she had imagined the room filled with unbearable pain, but the room also held love. It held mornings when her daughter laughed, nights when Mira told stories beside the bed, small hands reaching for hers. The grief had guarded these memories so fiercely that she had been afraid to enter them. Mira sat on the floor and cried. She cried for the child, for the years, for the mother she had been, for the woman who had spent 2 decades protecting herself from a room that had never chased her. Suri sat near the doorway. She did not tell Mira to calm down. Some tears are part of calming down. They carry what words cannot. The Buddha taught that suffering should be understood, not hidden. When we turn toward pain with awareness, we do not become the pain. We become the one who can witness it. This is the beginning of freedom. Mira stayed in the room until sunrise. She opened the window. Fresh air entered. Birds called from the trees. The room had not changed, but it was no longer sealed away from life. Before Suri left, Mira gave her the red ribbon. "I cannot take this." "You are not taking my daughter," Mira said. "You are carrying a reminder." "Of what?" "That the room we fear may also contain the love we lost." Suri tied the ribbon around her wrist. Then she continued home. Behind her, Mira left the door open. That evening, a small candle burned inside the room for the first time in 20 years. Its light could be seen from the road. A young boy walking through the darkness saw it. He believed the candle had been lit for him, and perhaps it had. The young boy saw the candle burning in the open room. Its small light reached across the dark road. He believed it had been lit for him, so he followed it. His name was Toma. He was 12 years old, but fear had made him feel much younger. He had run from home after arguing with his father. The argument had begun with something small, a broken bowl, a careless answer, a voice raised too quickly. But beneath the small argument was an older pain neither of them knew how to name. Toma's mother had died 2 years earlier. Since then, the house had changed. His father spoke less. Toma became angry more easily. They missed the same person, but grief had placed them on opposite sides of a wall. The father became strict because he was afraid of losing his son too. The son became distant because his father's fear felt like punishment. This happens in families. People can love one another deeply and still hurt one another because pain changes the language of love. Concern becomes control. Sadness becomes anger. Fear becomes silence. Neither person says what is truly happening, and so both feel abandoned while standing in the same room. When Toma broke the bowl, his father shouted, "You destroy everything you touch." The words left his mouth before he understood them. Toma heard more than anger. He heard a judgment on his whole life. He ran. He walked until the village disappeared behind him. Then the road became dark. That was when he saw the candle. Mira was still sitting in her daughter's room when Toma appeared at the door. She looked tired from crying, but her face was softer than it had been in years. "Why are you outside so late?" she asked. "I'm not going home." "Then come inside until you decide where you are going." Toma entered. He noticed the drawings of birds, the doll, the little bed. "Whose room is this?" "My daughter's." "Where is she?" "She died many years ago." Toma became quiet. Children often understand grief more quickly than adults expect. They may not have the right words, but they recognize the shape of absence. "My mother died," he said. Mira nodded. Toma sat near the candle. For a while neither spoke. The flame moved whenever wind entered through the open window. Toma watched it bend. He expected it to go out, but it remained. "Why did you light it?" he asked. "For my daughter." "Can she see it?" I do not know. Then why keep it burning? Mira looked at the flame. Perhaps the candle is not for her. Toma frowned. Then who is it for? For the part of me that still needs to remember without being destroyed by remembering. Toma did not fully understand, but something in the words felt true. The candle did not bring Mira's daughter back. It did not remove the pain. It gave the pain a place to sit. This is why people create small rituals around loss. A candle, a flower, a bowl of food placed before a photograph, a quiet prayer at the same time each year. The ritual does not change what happened. It allows the heart to meet what happened without being overwhelmed by it. Grief without a place can enter everywhere. It can hide inside anger. It can appear as tiredness. It can turn love into fear. But when grief is given a place, it becomes easier to recognize. This is sorrow. This is love with nowhere to go. This is not the whole of me. Mira gave Toma a second candle. Light this one for your mother. Toma hesitated. He had not spoken his mother's name for months. His father never said it. The house had become full of things they avoided. Toma lit the candle. At first, he felt nothing. Then he remembered his mother cutting fruit in the kitchen. He remembered the song she hummed. He remembered how she touched his hair when he was worried. His throat tightened. He tried to stop the tears. Mira said, "You do not have to protect the candle from water." Toma began to cry. He cried quietly, then harder. The tears came from a place beneath the broken bowl and the angry words. "My father does not miss her," he said. "How do you know?" "He never talks about her." "Perhaps he does not talk because he misses her too much." Toma looked toward the flame. "He is always angry." Some people wear anger because grief feels too soft to show. This is one of the most difficult lessons in human life. The person who hurts us may also be hurting. This does not make every harmful action right. It does not mean we should accept cruelty, but understanding pain can stop us from adding more hatred to it. Compassion is not pretending nothing happened. It is seeing more than one truth at the same time. Toma's father had spoken cruelly. Toma had been wounded, and the father might still be a grieving man who did not know how to say, "I am afraid." The next morning, Toma's father arrived at Mira's house. He had searched all night. Mud covered his clothes. His face looked older than it had the day before. When he saw Toma, he stopped. Neither moved. The father looked at the two candles. Then he saw the small room. Something in him broke open. "I did not mean what I said," he whispered. Toma looked down. His father continued, "When your mother died, I promised I would protect you, but I became so afraid of failing that I began treating every mistake like danger." Toma's eyes filled again. "I thought you did not miss her." The father sat beside the candle. "I miss her every day." "Then why did you never say her name?" "Because I thought it would make the pain worse." Mira watched them. Silence had not made the pain smaller. It had only made each person carry it alone. The father reached for Toma's hand. "I am sorry." Toma did not forgive him in one perfect moment. Real healing is often slower than stories make it seem, but he allowed his hand to remain. That was enough for the morning. They stayed until both candles burned low. Then the father and son walked home together. Mira watched them leave. She understood that the candle she had lit for an old sorrow had guided a living child through the dark. That evening, she placed another candle in the window. Farther along the road, another child saw the light. But this child did not move toward it. He stood frozen beneath the trees. The darkness around him was not the greatest darkness he feared. The greatest darkness was already inside his mind. The boy beneath the trees was named Niran. He saw Mira's candle in the distance. He wanted to walk toward it, but fear held his feet. Niran had always been afraid of darkness. When evening came, he closed every window. He checked beneath his bed. He kept a lamp burning beside him until morning. If the flame moved, his heart raced. If a branch touched the roof, he imagined someone climbing toward him. If a dog barked far away, he heard danger coming nearer. People laughed at him. His older cousins called him weak. His father said, "You are too old for this." But fear does not leave because it is mocked. It learns to hide. Niran stopped telling people when he was afraid. Instead, he carried fear silently. That night, he had gone into the forest to prove he was brave. His cousins had dared him to touch an old tree near the abandoned shrine. He had walked far enough to lose sight of the village. Then the wind had blown out his lamp. Now he stood alone. Every sound became a threat. The leaves moved. Something cracked behind him. His mind built 100 dangers from one small noise. This is what the mind often does when it cannot see clearly. It fills empty space with old fears. The darkness outside becomes a screen. The mind places its own images upon it. Niran saw the candle again. He took one step, then stopped. He remembered something his grandmother once told him. Fear grows when you give it the whole future. At the time, he had not understood. Now he did. He was not only afraid of the next step, he was imagining the entire road, the hidden animal, the stranger behind the tree, the fall into a hole, the possibility of never reaching home. His body was standing in one moment. His mind was suffering through 20 moments that had not happened. So Niran made a choice. He would not walk the whole road. He would take one step, only one. He moved his right foot. Nothing attacked him. Then he moved the left. Again, nothing happened. The fear remained. But now he was moving with it. Courage is not always the moment fear disappears. Sometimes courage is the decision that fear will not choose the direction. Niran continued. One step, one breath, one sound at a time. When a branch cracked, he stopped. His chest tightened. He wanted to run. Instead, he listened. A small animal moved through the leaves. That was all. The mind had created something large. Reality was smaller. This is why mindful attention matters. Fear speaks quickly. Awareness looks again. Fear says, something terrible is there. Awareness asks, what is actually here? Sometimes there is real danger. Then wisdom tells us to move. But often there is only uncertainty, and uncertainty is not the same as danger. Niran reached Mira's house. She opened the door before he knocked. "You saw the candle," she said. Niran nodded. "I was afraid." "And yet you arrived." "I was afraid the whole way." Mira smiled. "Then fear walked here with you. It did not stop you." She gave him warm water. Niran looked into the open room. The candles had burned low. "Are you afraid of this room?" he asked. "I was." "What changed?" "I entered it." Niran looked toward the forest. "I entered the dark, but I am still afraid. Entering once does not erase fear." "Then what is the point?" "The point is learning that fear can be present without becoming your master." Mira took a small lamp and led him outside. The night was deep. Niran stayed close to her. "What do you see?" she asked. "Nothing." "Look longer." His eyes slowly adjusted. He saw the shape of the road, the dark line of the trees, the pale stones beside the house. The night had not changed. His seeing had. This is true of many things. At first, grief seems like nothing but pain. Anger seems like nothing but heat. Loneliness seems like an endless, empty place. But when we stay and look carefully, more becomes visible. Grief contains love. Anger may contain fear. Loneliness may contain a need we have not named. The darkness is rarely empty. We are simply unable to see within it at first. Mira and Niran walked to the edge of the trees. His hand shook around the lamp. "Turn it off," she said. Niran stared at her. "No." "Then hold it until you are ready." They waited. The wind moved gently. An owl called. Nothing rushed them. After a long time, Niran lowered the lamp's cover. The flame disappeared. His fear rose quickly. He breathed. He felt his feet on the ground. He listened to the owl again. The same sound that had frightened him now seemed almost beautiful. The stars became visible above the trees. "I could not see them with the lamp," he said. "The lamp was too close to your eyes." Niran looked upward. Sometimes the thing we use to feel safe prevents us from seeing what safety is already present. We cling to control, to certainty, to constant reassurance, but the more tightly we hold them, the less we trust our ability to meet life without them. Buddhist practice does not ask us to throw away every comfort. It asks us to notice when comfort becomes a cage. Mira and Niran stayed beneath the stars. His fear did not disappear. It changed. It became smaller than the sky. The next morning, Niran returned to his village. His cousins asked whether he had touched the old tree. He said, "No." They laughed. He did not argue. He no longer needed their idea of courage. He knew what he had done. He had taken one step while afraid, then another. That was enough. Before he left, Mira gave him a small piece of candle. "Keep this," she said, "to light at night." "No, to remember that light is useful, but you also have eyes that can learn the dark." Niran walked home. That evening, he placed the candle beside his bed. He did not light it. He opened the window instead. Moonlight entered the room. A single drop of water rested on the window ledge. Inside that drop, Niran saw the moon. The same moon was being reflected farther away in the tears of someone who believed his sadness had made him weak. The man looking at the moon through tears was named Dalen. He was a soldier who had returned from war. The villagers welcomed him as a hero. They placed flowers around his neck. They praised his bravery. They asked him to tell stories about victory. Dalen smiled because he did not know what else to do. Inside, he felt far from the person they were celebrating. He had returned alive. Several of his friends had not. The villagers saw survival as a blessing. Dalen felt it as a question. Why him? Why had he come home when others had fallen? Why did he wake beneath a roof while their families waited for footsteps that would never return? Every kind word made the guilt heavier. People told him he should be happy. He began to hate happiness. He believed any moment of peace would be stolen from the dead. This is survivor's guilt. It can appear after war, after illness, after accidents, after any event where one person remains and another does not. The mind searches for fairness. When it cannot find fairness, it creates blame. Sometimes it blames the self. Dalen left the village each night and walked to the river. He sat beneath the moon. He tried not to cry. He had learned that strong men did not cry, so he held the tears inside until his chest hurt. One night, Niran passed the river on his way home. He saw Dalen sitting alone. The boy almost continued walking. Adults often look as if they want privacy when they really want someone to notice. Niran stopped. "Are you hurt?" he asked. Dalen wiped his face. "No, you are crying." "I am not." Niran sat beside him. "My grandmother says people deny tears because tears tell the truth too quickly." Dalen looked at the boy. "That sounds like something an old person would say." Niran smiled. They watched the water. The moon trembled in the river. Dalen's tears fell. One landed on the back of his hand. Moonlight shone inside it. Niran pointed. The moon is in your tear. Dalan almost laughed. The moon is in the sky. It is in both. Dalan looked closer. The tear moved, and the reflection disappeared. But the moon remained above them. Something about this touched him. The tear had not damaged the moon. It had reflected it. Perhaps sorrow was not proof that light was gone. Perhaps sorrow was another place where light could appear. Dalan began to speak. He told Niran about his closest friend, Jaro. They had grown up together. They had trained together. During the final battle, Jaro had pushed Dalan away from danger. Jaro died. Dalan lived. He should be here, Dalan said. Niran did not try to explain why things happened. Children sometimes have the wisdom to leave unanswered things unanswered. Do you think he saved you so you could spend your life hating that you lived? Niran asked. Dalan looked away. I do not know. What did he love? Music, sweet rice, bad jokes. Did he love you? Yes. Then maybe your life is not something you stole from him. Dalan's face tightened. It feels stolen. This is how guilt works. It confuses receiving with taking. It turns survival into a crime. It asks the living to prove their love by refusing to live. But suffering more does not honor those who suffered. Destroying the life that remains does not restore the life that ended. Buddhist compassion includes compassion for the self. Without it, grief becomes punishment. Dalan had thought self-kindness would excuse him. In truth, there was nothing to excuse. He had not chosen who survived. He had only survived. The river moved beneath the moon. Niran picked up a stone. He dropped it into the water. The moon's reflection broke into pieces. Then, as the water settled, it became whole again. The moon did not break, Niran said. The water moved. Dalan understood. His mind was like the river. War had struck it. Grief had disturbed it. Guilt had broken every reflection. But the deepest part of him had not been destroyed. It was hidden beneath movement. Buddhist teaching often compares the mind to water. When disturbed, it cannot reflect clearly. We begin to see ourselves through pain. I am guilty. I am broken. I do not deserve peace. But these are reflections in moving water. They are not the whole truth. Dalan returned to the river the next night, then the next. He allowed himself to cry. He said Jaro's name. He remembered the jokes. He remembered the fear. He remembered the final moment. He did not force the memory away. He did not turn it into punishment. Slowly, the memory became part of his life instead of the judge of it. One morning, Dalan visited Jaro's family. He had avoided them for months. Jaro's mother opened the door. When she saw him, she began to cry. Dalan lowered his head. I'm sorry I came back without him. She touched his face. Do not apologize for coming home. Those words entered a place no teaching had reached. She gave him Jaro's flute. He wanted you to have this. Dalan held it with shaking hands. I cannot play. Then learn. He did. At first, every note sounded broken. Then the sounds became clearer. On the anniversary of Jaro's death, Dalan played beside the river. The villagers gathered. No one called it a victory song. It was a song for grief, a song for friendship, a song for the living who did not know how to continue. When it ended, Dalan looked at the moon. He still missed Jaro. Healing had not erased love. It had removed the belief that love required lifelong punishment. That night, the music crossed the water. A boatman heard it. He stopped rowing. For years, he had blamed the river for taking someone he loved. The song made him look down at the water. For the first time, he wondered whether he had been fighting the wrong enemy. The boatman's name was Oren. He had spent most of his life on the river. He knew every bend, every shallow place, every hidden rock. He knew how the water changed before rain. He knew where the current became strong. People trusted him. But Oren did not trust the river, not anymore. Years earlier, his younger brother had fallen from the boat during a storm. Oren had reached for him. Their hands touched. Then the current pulled his brother away. The body was found 3 days later. After that, Oren continued working. He still carried passengers. He still crossed the river each morning. But each time he touched the water, anger rose. Inside him, he spoke to the river as if it could hear. "You took him. You should have taken me. I will never forgive you." The river answered only by moving. People told Oren it had been an accident. He knew this, but anger does not always care about reason. Anger wants someone to blame. When life gives it no person, it may blame a place, a season, a body, a god, even the self. Blame can make pain feel organized. If someone is guilty, then the world has an order. But some suffering has no clear villain. This is difficult for the mind to accept. The night Dalen played the flute, Oren stopped his boat near the center of the river. The music moved across the water. It was sad, but not bitter. Oren felt his brother return in memory. He remembered them swimming as children, stealing fruit, sleeping beneath the boat when their father could not find them. The river had not only held the day of death, it had held their whole childhood. Oren had allowed one terrible moment to cover every other memory. This often happens after loss. The final day becomes so large that it swallows all the days before it. We remember the hospital instead of the laughter, the goodbye instead of the years, the ending instead of the life. Pain narrows memory. Healing slowly widens it again. The next morning, Dalen came to cross the river. He carried Jaro's flute. "You played last night," Oren said. Dalen nodded. "For someone you lost?" "Yes." Oren looked at the water. "How did he die?" "In war." "Do you hate the people who killed him?" "Sometimes." "Does hatred help?" Dalen thought before answering. "It makes me feel close to him for a moment. Then it leaves me farther from myself." Oren understood this. His anger at the river had become a way of staying connected to his brother. If he stopped blaming the river, he feared the loss would become ordinary. He feared forgiveness would say the death did not matter. But forgiveness does not say nothing happened. It does not say the pain was acceptable. It says the pain will no longer control every moment that follows. Oren rode in silence. Halfway across, he stopped. "This is where he fell," he said. Dalen looked at the water. Oren had never told a passenger this before. I held his hand. "What happened?" "I lost it." "You did not release him?" "No." "Then why do you speak as if you chose to let go?" Oren stared at Dalen. For years he had blamed the river. Beneath that blame was something deeper. He blamed himself. He believed a stronger hand would have saved his brother. He had replayed that moment thousands of times. In every version, he reached faster, held tighter, moved differently. The past became a trial that never ended. Oren was always the accused, and always the judge. This is one of the cruel habits of the mind. It uses knowledge from the present to punish the person we were in the past. We look back with details we did not have then. We imagine strength we did not possess. We demand that our earlier self should have known what only pain later taught us. This is not wisdom. It is punishment disguised as reflection. Dalen said, "You were a man in a storm trying to save someone you loved." "I failed." "You could not control the river." "I should have." "Could your brother control it?" "No." "Could anyone?" Oren's eyes filled. "No." The boat drifted. For the first time, Oren allowed himself to say what had always seemed impossible. "It was not my fault." The words felt wrong in his mouth. Then they felt painful. Then, slowly, they felt true. The Buddha taught that actions arise from causes and conditions. A storm, a strong current, a sudden movement, a wet hand. Not every tragedy comes from one person's failure. Sometimes many conditions meet and suffering occurs. Understanding this does not remove grief. It removes the false belief that grief must always find someone to punish. Oren dipped his hand into the river. The water moved around his fingers. It was the same river, yet it was not the same water that had taken his brother. That water had passed long ago. This is impermanence. We use one name for a thing that is always changing: the river, the body, the self. But nothing remains exactly as it was. Oren had hated the river as if it were one permanent creature holding one permanent crime. In truth, the river of that day was gone. The man Oren had been was also gone. Only the pain had remained because he kept returning it to the present. He reached into his pocket and removed a small wooden fish his brother had carved. He had carried it for years. Oren placed it on the water. For a moment it floated beside the boat. Then the current carried it away. Dalen watched. "Are you letting him go?" Oren shook his head. "I am letting go of the punishment." That was different. Love remained. Memory remained. The river remained. But the war between them began to end. Oren rowed to the far bank. When Dalen stepped out, Oren asked him to play one note. Dalen lifted the flute. A clear sound crossed the water. Oren listened until it faded. Then he returned to the center of the river alone. He spoke softly. "I forgive you." He did not know whether he was speaking to the river himself or the whole uncontrollable world. Perhaps he was speaking to all three. The current continued. It did not ask forgiveness. It did not explain itself. It simply carried the boat forward. On the opposite bank, a passenger waited. The person wore a simple robe and carried no belongings. When Oren brought the boat near, he noticed something strange. The passenger stepped aboard, but the wet ground behind them showed no footprints. Oren looked again. The marks were gone. The passenger smiled. And the next story began before the boat had even left the shore. The passenger stepped into Oren's boat. The robe was simple. The hands were empty. No bag, no shoes, no sign of where the traveler had come from. Oren looked at the wet ground again. There were no footprints leading to the river. "Where are you going?" Oren asked. "To the other side." Oren almost laughed. "That is where everyone in this boat is going." The passenger smiled. "Then we already have something in common." Oren pushed away from the bank. The river was calm. The wooden fish he had released was no longer visible. For the first time in many years, Oren did not search the water for someone he had lost. He simply rowed. The passenger sat without moving. Oren noticed how quiet the stranger was. Not the silence of someone hiding a secret. The silence of someone who did not need to fill every moment. "Are you a monk?" Oren asked. "I have worn many names." That is not an answer. It may be the only honest one. Oren frowned. Most passengers spoke about where they had been. They complained about the weather. They asked how long the crossing would take. This one watched the water as if it were speaking. "Why are there no footprints behind you?" Oren asked. The passenger looked toward the shore. "Perhaps you looked too late. I looked when you arrived. Then perhaps you were looking for the wrong thing." Oren stopped rowing for a moment. He did not like answers that created more questions, but he had spent years blaming a river. He had learned that certainty could be more dangerous than mystery. So he continued. Halfway across, the passenger asked, "Who were you speaking to before I arrived?" Oren's hands tightened around the oars. "My brother." "Where is he?" "Dead." "And yet you spoke to him." Oren looked at the water. "I spoke to the river too." Did either answer? "No." "Then why speak?" Oren thought about this. "Because something in me needed to say the words." The passenger nodded. Then perhaps the answer was in the speaking. This is one of the reasons human beings tell stories. Not every story is told to receive advice. Not every sorrow needs a solution. Sometimes pain becomes lighter when it is given a voice. The heart does not always ask to be repaired. Sometimes it asks to be heard. Oren had spent years speaking only in anger. That morning, he had spoken forgiveness. The river had not changed, but he had. The passenger looked toward the far bank. "Do you believe your brother is gone?" Oren hesitated. "I believe his body is gone. What remains? Memories. Only memories?" Oren remembered his brother's kindness, his laughter, the way he shared food even when he was hungry. He remembered how those qualities had shaped him. "My brother taught me how to row." Then each crossing carries something of him. Oren felt a quiet pain, not sharp, not punishing, something softer. The passenger continued. "We often ask where the dead have gone, but we rarely ask where their love has gone." Oren listened. "Love does not remain as a person we can hold," the passenger said. "It enters the way we speak, the choices we make, the kindness we give because someone once gave kindness to us." Oren looked at his hands. His brother had placed those hands on the oars when they were children. He had guided every movement. Now Oren used the same movements to carry strangers safely across the river. Perhaps the dead were not present as ghosts. Perhaps they remained as causes, one life touching another, one action becoming another action years later. This is close to the Buddhist teaching of interdependence. Nothing exists alone. A tree contains rain, soil, sunlight, and time. A bowl contains clay, fire, hands, and effort. A person contains parents, teachers, friends, losses, and countless moments that shape the heart. We are not separate beings moving through an empty world. We are made from relationships. The passenger reached into the river. Water passed through the fingers. "Can you hold the river?" the stranger asked. "No." "Can the river touch you?" "Yes." The passenger lifted the wet hand. Not everything must be held to be real. Oren understood. He had tried to hold his brother through guilt. He had believed that releasing the guilt would release the love. But love was never inside the guilt. Love was in the rowing, the remembering, the safe crossing, the compassion he now felt for those who carried pain. The boat reached the far bank. The passenger stood. Oren watched carefully. The stranger stepped onto the mud. Again, no footprint remained. "Who are you?" Oren asked. The passenger turned. "Someone who needed to cross. That is all. That is enough." The stranger walked toward the trees. Oren called after him. "Where will you go now?" The passenger did not turn. "To return something that has been waiting too long." Then the figure disappeared among the trees. Oren stepped onto the bank. He searched the ground. Nothing, no footprint, no broken branch, no mark in the grass, only a small folded paper resting on a stone. Oren opened it. There were 7 words written inside. "What you carry is also carrying you." Beneath the words was the name of a village. Oren knew the place. It was 2 days away. He could not explain why, but he felt the message was meant to continue its journey. So he gave the paper to Dalen, the soldier with the flute. Dalen agreed to take it. He followed the road to the village named on the paper. At the edge of the village stood an old house. Inside that house, beneath a sleeping mat, waited a letter that had remained unopened for 18 years. Dalen reached the village near sunset. The paper from Oren led him to a small house beside a field. An old woman opened the door. Her name was Vara. She looked at the folded message in Dalen's hand. Her face changed. "Where did you get that?" "From a boatman." "And where did he get it?" "From a passenger who left no footprints." Vara closed her eyes. For a moment, Dalen thought she might faint. Then she opened the door wider. "Come inside." The house was simple. A pot rested over a small fire. A sleeping mat lay near the wall. A wooden box sat in the corner. Dalen gave her the paper. Vara read the words, "What you carry is also carrying you." Her hands began to shake. "I wrote those words," she said. "When?" 18 years ago." Dalen waited. Vara sat near the fire. She looked older than her years, not because of age, because regret had been living inside her body for too long. She told Dalen about her son, Arun. When Arun was young, he wanted to become a musician. Vara wanted him to remain in the village. His father had died, and she feared being left alone. She told Arun that music was foolish. She said he was selfish. She said a good son would stay. They argued for many months. Then one night, Arun left. Before leaving, he wrote a letter. Vara found it beneath his sleeping mat. She was too angry to open it. Days passed, then weeks. Her anger became pride. Pride became shame. Shame became fear. The letter remained beneath the mat. Years later, Vara heard that Arun had become a traveling musician. Then the news stopped. She did not know whether he was alive. Still, she did not open the letter. We may wonder how anyone could leave a letter unopened for 18 years. But human beings do this in many ways. We avoid messages. We refuse conversations. We do not enter rooms. We keep questions unanswered because we fear the answer will change something. Avoidance gives us temporary control. As long as the letter remains closed, every possibility remains alive. Perhaps he forgave me. Perhaps he hated me. Perhaps he planned to return. Perhaps he never wanted to see me again. The unopened truth can become less frightening than the known truth. But uncertainty has its own weight. Vara carried every possible answer for 18 years. Dalen looked toward the sleeping mat. "Is the letter still there?" "Yes." "Why have you never moved it?" "I moved houses twice," Vara said. "I carried the mat with me." The mat had become a place of worship for her regret. Every night she slept above the words she was afraid to read. Every morning she rose without knowing what they contained. The body can rest above truth, while the mind remains awake beneath it. Dalen understood this. He had avoided Jaro's family because he feared what their faces would say. He had imagined blame. But when he finally went, Jaro's mother had told him not to apologize for surviving. The truth had been painful, but kinder than fear. "Open it," Dalen said. Vara looked at him sharply. "You speak as if it is easy." "No," Dalen replied. "I speak as someone who waited too long outside a door." Vara stared at the fire. "What if he hated me?" "Then the hatred has already been written." "What if he loved me?" "Then the love has been waiting." "What if he said goodbye?" "Then you have been saying goodbye for 18 years without hearing his words." Vara began to cry. Dalen did not touch the mat. He did not pull out the letter. Some truths must be approached by the person who fears them. Buddhist teaching values right effort, not force. A teacher may point toward the path, but each person must take the step. Vara stood. She walked to the mat. Her body moved slowly. She lifted one corner. Dust covered the floor beneath it. There was the letter, yellow with age, still folded, still sealed. Vara picked it up. She held it against her chest. "I cannot." Dalen removed Jaro's flute. He played one soft note. The sound filled the room. Then it faded. Vara breathed. She broke the seal. The letter was short. "Mother, I am leaving because I must discover whether music is truly my path. I am angry, but I do not hate you. I know your fear is speaking through your anger. One day, I hope you will understand that leaving you is not the same as abandoning you. You taught me to listen for birds before a storm. You taught me to share food. You taught me that courage is doing what love cannot do for us. I carry these things with me. What you carry is also carrying you. I will return when I can return without anger. Your son, Arun." Vara read the letter twice, then again. He had not hated her. He had understood her fear, even while it wounded him. The words she had been avoiding were not a punishment, they were compassion. This happens more often than we know. We fear judgment. Sometimes what waits is understanding. We fear rejection. Sometimes what waits is an explanation. We fear grief. Sometimes what waits is love. Vara pressed the letter to her face. He said he would return. Dalen looked away. A promise from 18 years ago could not guarantee anything. "Do you know where he is?" she asked. "No." Then why did the message come now? Dalen remembered the passenger, someone who needed to cross. Perhaps some questions did not need complete answers before they could change a life. The letter had already returned Arun's voice to the room. It had corrected 18 years of imagined hatred. It had shown Vara that her son had left carrying both pain and love. Buddhist wisdom teaches that people are rarely one thing. A person can be hurt and still compassionate, angry and still loving, gone and still present in the causes they created. Vara placed the letter beside the fire, not to burn it, to see it clearly. "I spent 18 years believing I was afraid of his anger," she said. "What were you truly afraid of?" Dalen asked. "That he had understood me better than I understood myself." Her fear had controlled him. Her fear of loneliness had pushed him away. Her fear of reading the letter had kept him absent. Now she saw the pattern. This seeing was painful, but it was also freedom. The first step in healing is not always forgiveness. Sometimes it is honest recognition. I did this because I was afraid. I hurt someone while trying to protect myself. I cannot change the past, but I can stop hiding from it. Vara folded the letter carefully. "Will you help me find him?" Dalen nodded. They asked travelers, musicians, merchants. At last, a fruit seller remembered a man named Arun. "He passed through years ago," the seller said. "He was searching for his father's village." Vara's face changed again. Arun had not only been moving away, he had been searching for where he came from. The seller gave them the name of a town beside a great banyan tree. Dalen and Vara left the next morning. After 3 days, they reached the town. Beneath the banyan tree sat an old man. He had been waiting there every afternoon for many years. He was not waiting for Vara. He was waiting for a daughter who had promised never to return. The old man sat beneath the banyan tree. His name was Harun. Each afternoon he placed a second mat beside him. Each evening he carried it home unused. The villagers knew his story. Many had stopped asking questions. Waiting had become part of the landscape. The tree, the stone road, the old man, the empty mat. Dalen and Vara approached him. "Are you looking for a musician named Arun?" Dalen asked. Harun shook his head. "I am waiting for my daughter." Vara looked at the second mat. "How long has she been gone?" 23 years. Vara understood long waiting. She sat beside him. "What happened?" Harun looked at the road. "My daughter's name is Lena." He spoke slowly. "When Lena was young, she wanted to marry a man from another village. Harun refused. The man was poor. His family had no land. Harun believed his daughter deserved more. Lena said she loved him. Harun said love did not feed a family. She begged. He threatened. Finally, Lena left. Before going, she stood beneath the banyan tree and said, 'I will not return until you can see me as a person, not a possession.' Harun answered with anger, 'Then never return.' Those were the last words he spoke to her. We often believe our harshest words disappear after they leave the mouth. They do not. They travel. They enter another person's memory. They return to us years later. A sentence spoken in 1 minute can become a room someone lives inside for decades. Harun regretted the words before sunset. but pride told him to wait for Lena to apologize. 1 day passed, then 1 month, then 1 year. At first, he waited inside the house. Later, he began sitting beneath the tree. He believed Lena might return along the road. She did not. "Did you search for her?" Dalan asked. Harun lowered his head. "Not at first." "Why?" "I believed a father should not chase a disobedient child. And later, I was ashamed I had waited so long." Shame often creates the very delay it punishes us for. We think, "I should have acted sooner." Then we use that thought as a reason not to act now. Harun waited until searching felt impossible, so he sat beneath the banyan tree. Waiting became his way of feeling loyal, but waiting was also safer than searching. If he searched, he might discover Lena had died, or that she hated him, or that she had built a life with no place for him. By remaining beneath the tree, he could continue believing she might appear tomorrow. Vara touched the unopened years inside her own story. She had slept above a letter. Harun sat beside a road. Both had turned avoidance into devotion. "Why do you place a mat for her?" Vara asked. "So she will know there is still a place for her." "Does she know the mat is here?" Harun looked at her. "No." "Then perhaps the place is only inside your hope." Harun's face tightened. Vara continued gently. "I waited 18 years to read my son's letter. I told myself I was keeping his memory close. In truth, I was hiding from what he might say." Harun looked at the letter in her hand. "What did he say?" "That he understood my fear." "Did that make the years easier?" "No. It made me see that many of them were unnecessary." The word unnecessary hurt more than cruel. Some suffering is unavoidable: death, illness, change. But other suffering is built from pride, fear, delay, and the refusal to speak. Buddhism teaches that suffering has causes. When we understand the cause, we may stop feeding it. Harun's waiting had several causes: love, regret, pride, fear, habit. Each afternoon beneath the tree strengthened the belief that waiting was all he could do. Dalan sat on the empty mat. "You are sitting in her place," Harun said. Then perhaps the place was never only for her. Harun stared at him. Dalan continued, "Perhaps it is a place for the conversation you keep refusing to have." "With whom?" "With yourself." Harun became angry. "I have thought about my mistake every day." Thinking about a wound is not the same as treating it. This is true. We may replay the past without learning from it. We may punish ourselves and call it responsibility. But guilt that creates no wise action is only suffering repeating itself. Real remorse moves. It apologizes. It repairs what can be repaired. It changes how we treat the next person. Harun had believed sitting beneath the tree proved his love. But love that never moves toward the person may become only a monument to regret. "What should I do?" Harun asked. "Search," Vara said, "and if she is dead, then you will grieve the truth instead of waiting inside a dream. And if she refuses to see me, then you can still send the apology she deserved. And if she has forgotten me, then your pride will no longer decide your actions." Harun looked at the road. For 23 years, he had watched others travel it. He had not taken one step. The banyan tree had grown wider. His body had grown weaker. Time had not waited with him. That evening, Harun carried both mats home. The villagers noticed. The next morning, he packed food and water. He had little information, only the name of the village where Lena's husband had been born. Still, a small direction is enough to begin. Dalan and Vara agreed to travel with him. Along the way, Harun practiced the apology he hoped to give. At first, it contained explanations. "I was afraid for you. I wanted a better life 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 for you. I wanted An apology should not ask the wounded person to carry your reasons. Harun tried again. I was wrong. The words felt too small, but truth is often simple. I treated you as if your life belonged to me. Better. I used love to justify control. Better. I said words no father should say. Better. I am sorry. There it was. No defense, no demand, no request for quick forgiveness. Buddhist compassion does not remove accountability. It allows us to see our harmful action without turning ourselves into a permanently harmful person. Harun had made a serious mistake, but he was more than the worst sentence he had spoken. He could not change that sentence. He could become someone who would never speak it again. After 7 days, they reached Lena's village. They asked for her. An old shopkeeper pointed toward a small house. Harun's legs shook. He stood outside the gate. A woman appeared. Her hair was grey. Her face carried years he had not witnessed. Harun knew her at once. Lena. She stopped. For a long time, neither moved. Then Lena looked at the bag on his shoulder. The banyan tree finally released you. Harun began to cry. I was wrong. Lena said nothing. I treated you as if your life belonged to me. I used love to control you. I told you never to return. I have regretted those words every day. Lena's eyes filled. Why did you not come sooner? Pride first, then shame. She looked away. I waited for you too. Harun covered his face. Two people had waited in different places. Each believed the other had chosen absence. This is how families lose years, not always because love disappears, sometimes because fear speaks louder than love. Lena did not immediately embrace him. Forgiveness is not a performance. It has its own time. But she opened the gate. You may come inside, she said. Harun stepped forward. The road had not restored 23 years, but it had brought him into the next honest moment. Inside the house, a repaired bowl sat on a table. A golden line ran through its center. Harun touched it. It was broken, Lena said. Who repaired it? A potter who lives beyond the hill. She poured tea into the bowl. The crack is still visible. Yes, Lena said, but it no longer leaks. Harun looked at his daughter. He understood that some relationships may be repaired without pretending they were never broken. The next morning, Darlan and Vara continued their search for Arun. They followed the road beyond the hill. There they found the potter, and beside him was a bowl that had already been repaired. Beyond the hill, Darlan and Vara found the potter's house. Clay bowls rested on wooden shelves. Some were smooth, some were uneven. Some had bright lines running through old cracks. The potter was shaping a small cup when they arrived. Beside him sat a woman with grey hair. Vara stopped walking. She knew the woman before the woman looked up. Arun, Vara whispered. The potter placed the cup down. The grey-haired woman rose. My name is Lila, she said. Arun was my husband. Vara's face lost its color. Was. Lila lowered her eyes. He died 6 years ago. The road seemed to disappear beneath Vara's feet. For 18 years she had feared opening her son's letter. Then she had crossed villages to find him. Now she had arrived too late. Some pain comes from losing someone. Other pain comes from realizing time was available, but we did not use it. Vara sat on the ground. Dalen remained beside her. He did not tell her that everything happened for a reason. He did not say she should be grateful for the journey. There are moments when comforting words become a way of escaping another person's pain. So he stayed quiet. Lila brought water. Vara did not drink. Did he speak about me? She asked. Many times. Was he angry? Yes. Vara closed her eyes. Lila continued. But anger was not the only thing he carried. Vara opened her eyes again. He carried the way you taught him to listen for rain. He cooked rice the way you did. He told our children stories about the field behind your house. We have grandchildren, too." Vara began to cry. She had lost years with her son. She had also lost years with children she did not know existed. Regret rose inside her like fire. It searched for someone to blame. Herself, her fear, her pride, the unopened letter. "I do not deserve to meet them," Vara said. Lila sat beside her. "That is not your decision alone." Vara looked at her. "You should hate me." "I did." The honesty surprised everyone. Lila did not soften the truth. "When Aaron was ill, he asked me to find you. I refused." Vara stared at her. "Why?" "Because I had seen how your absence hurt him. I wanted you to feel the same absence." Now it was Lila's turn to lower her head. "I thought anger would protect his memory." Vara felt new pain enter the room. She could have accused Lila. She could have said, "You kept me from my son." She could have used Lila's mistake to escape her own. But the journey had changed something in her. She understood what fear could make people do. She had once tried to keep Aaron close through control. Lila had tried to protect him through anger. Different actions, the same frightened heart. Vara asked, "Did he forgive me?" Lila looked toward the shelves. "He stopped asking whether he forgave you." "What does that mean?" He said forgiveness was not a door he opened once. Some days he remembered you with love, some days with pain, some days with both. This is how forgiveness often works. It is not one perfect moment. It is not the sudden disappearance of hurt. It is the slow decision to stop using pain as a weapon. Sometimes the decision must be made many times. Vara held Aaron's letter. "I came to ask him to forgive me." Lila said, "Perhaps you came to stop hiding." The words were difficult, but true. Vara had imagined that Aaron's forgiveness would free her. Now Aaron was gone. She had to face a deeper question. Could she change even without receiving the answer she wanted? Many people delay becoming honest because the wounded person is not ready to forgive. But remorse is not a bargain. We do not change only if someone rewards us with peace. We change because we have finally seen clearly. Lila led Vara into the house. Two young adults sat near the window. A young man was repairing a stringed instrument. A young woman was painting small birds on a bowl. They looked up. "These are Aaron's children," Lila said. Vara's legs weakened. The young woman studied her face. "You are our grandmother." Vara nodded. "I am also the mother who caused your father great pain." No excuse followed, no request for sympathy. "I was afraid of being left alone, and I used that fear to control him. When he left, I refused to read his letter. I lost years I cannot recover." The young man placed the instrument down. "Father said you were stubborn." Vara almost smiled through her tears. "He was right. He also said you made the best lentil soup." Vara covered her mouth. The children did not rush toward her. They had their own feelings. Their father's pain belonged to their story too. But the young woman moved a cushion closer. "You can sit." Vara sat. It was not forgiveness. It was not rejection. It was space. Sometimes healing begins with nothing more than space. That evening they ate together. Vara heard stories about the years she had missed. Aaron had become a musician. He had traveled. He had taught children. He had laughed loudly. He had also carried sadness when speaking about home. Vara listened without defending herself. This was part of her practice now, to hear the effect of her actions without turning the conversation toward her own pain. The next morning, Lila took Vara to Aaron's grave. A small tree grew beside it. Vara knelt. "I am sorry," she said. The wind moved through the leaves. No answer came. But Vara understood that apology is still meaningful when no answer is possible. It changes the person who speaks it. It changes how that person lives afterward. On the way back, Vara asked Lila, "Why did you let me enter your home?" Lila looked ahead. "Because I became tired of carrying anger for someone who was no longer here to need it." "Are you no longer angry?" "I did not say that." Vara waited. Lila continued, "I am learning not to obey it." This was the wisdom Vara needed. Lila had not forgotten. She had not declared the past harmless. She had simply returned without anger leading her steps. She had returned to the memory of Arun, returned to the possibility of family, returned to the part of herself that wanted peace more than punishment. That afternoon, the potter invited them into his workshop. On a table stood a bowl divided by a deep crack. A bright golden line now held it together. Vara touched the repaired place. "Was this Arun's?" she asked. The potter nodded. "He broke it during his final year." "Why did he keep it?" "He said the bowl looked more honest after it was repaired." Vara lifted it carefully. The bowl had already been broken, already been repaired, already become something new. And its story was waiting for them to understand. The bowl rested in Vara's hands. Its crack was easy to see. The potter had not hidden it. He had filled the broken place with a bright joining material, so the line appeared stronger than the clay around it. "It is beautiful," Dalen said. "It was once ordinary," the potter replied. "Did breaking make it valuable?" Vara asked. "No." The potter wiped clay from his fingers. Breaking only broke it. The care given afterward changed it. This matters. People often say suffering makes us stronger. But suffering does not always make people stronger. Sometimes it leaves them tired, afraid, suspicious, closed. Pain alone is not a teacher. It becomes a teacher when it is met with awareness, compassion, support, and time. A cracked bowl does not repair itself simply because it has suffered. Someone must gather the pieces. Someone must clean the edges. Someone must place them together carefully. The same is true of the heart. Vara studied the bowl. "Arun broke this?" The potter nodded. "He was playing music for children. One child ran into the table. The bowl fell." "Was he angry?" "At first." The potter smiled. He said the child should have been more careful. "What happened next?" The child began to cry. Arun looked at the broken bowl, then at the child. He said, "The bowl can be repaired. A frightened heart should not be broken for it." Vara lowered her eyes. Her son had learned gentleness she had not taught him. Or perhaps he had learned it because he knew what harsh words could do. Sometimes people become compassionate because someone was compassionate to them. Sometimes they become compassionate because someone was not. Even pain can become the place where a different choice begins. The potter placed the bowl on the table. "Arun brought it to me the next day." "Why did he not buy another?" "He said replacement was easy, repair required attention." Dalen thought about Jaro's flute. It had belonged to someone who was gone. He could have found another instrument, but another instrument would not have carried the same hands, the same history, the same love. Not everything damaged should be discarded, yet not everything damaged can be restored to its old form. The wisdom is knowing the difference. Vara asked, "Can every bowl be repaired?" "No." The potter pointed toward a basket of broken clay. "Some pieces are missing. Some have become too weak. Some clay breaks again when joined." "What do you do with those?" "I grind them." "For what?" "To mix into new clay." Vara looked surprised. "So nothing is wasted?" The potter shook his head. "Some things are wasted. Some things are lost. We should not create comforting lies." He lifted a handful of clay dust. "But loss can still become part of what is made next." This is a difficult truth. Healing does not return everything. A repaired relationship is not the same relationship it was before trust broke. A healed body may still carry weakness. A person who has grieved deeply may laugh again, but the laughter may contain new knowledge. Repair is not a return, it is a new form. People suffer when they demand that healing erase all evidence of the wound. They want to become who they were before, but the person before the pain no longer exists. Time has moved, understanding has changed. The task is not to return. The task is to live honestly as the person who remains. Vara thought about her son. She could not return to the years before he left. She could not become the mother who made a different choice, but she could become a grandmother who listened, a woman who opened letters, a person who did not use fear to control love. The repaired bowl did not deny the crack. It gave the crack a new purpose. That evening, the potter asked Vara to help repair a small cup. He placed the broken pieces before her. Her hands shook. "I do not know how." "You know how to begin." "How?" "Pick up the first piece." Vara did. The potter showed her how to clean the edges, how to place one piece beside another, how not to force a shape that did not fit. She tried to move too quickly. The pieces slipped. Slowly, the potter said, "I have already lost too much time." "Then do not lose this moment by rushing through it." Vara breathed. She tried again. Repair demanded patience, not the patience of doing nothing, the patience of giving careful attention. Many people want healing to happen quickly because pain has already lasted too long. But rushing can become another kind of violence. We tell the heart, "You should be better by now." We tell trust, "Return immediately." We tell grief, "You have had enough time." But every wound has its own conditions. Wise effort does not mean forcing growth. It means creating the conditions where growth becomes possible. Vara joined the first two pieces, then the third. A thin line remained. She started to cover it. The potter stopped her. "Why hide it?" "Because it shows where the cup failed. It shows where the cup was cared for." Vara looked at the line. She had spent years hiding the places where she had failed. Hiding had not made them disappear. It had only prevented repair. When the cup was complete, it was uneven. One side leaned slightly. Vara frowned. "It is not perfect." Was perfection the purpose? No. What was? To make it useful again. The potter poured water into the cup. Nothing leaked. Vara held it with both hands. For the first time she understood that worth does not disappear when perfection does. Many people secretly believe they are useful only when they are unbroken, when they are strong, productive, calm, easy to love. But a person may be grieving and still kind, afraid and still brave, wounded and still able to offer shelter. The crack does not remove the whole life. The next morning, Vara gave the repaired cup to Arun's daughter. "I made this badly," she said. The young woman turned it in her hands. "You made it honestly." She poured tea into it. Then she drank. Vara felt tears rise. A broken cup had become part of a new relationship, not because the past had disappeared, because attention had entered the place where damage had been. Before Dalen and Vara continued their journey, the potter showed them a long shelf. It held dozens of repaired bowls. Each crack had a different shape. Each repair told a different story. "You love broken things," Dalen said. The potter smiled. "No, I love what careful hands can do after breaking." Behind him, another man entered the workshop. He carried a sack filled with damaged cups. He was a merchant from the city. He had planned to throw them away, but he had heard about a potter who loved every crack. The merchant dropped the sack onto the floor. Broken pieces struck one another inside. "I was told you repair anything," he said. The potter looked at the sack. "I repair what can be repaired." These cups were damaged during travel. Make them look new. The potter opened the sack. Several cups were cracked. 2 had lost their handles. One had broken into many pieces. "I can repair some," he said. "Good. But they will not look new." The merchant frowned. "Then what am I paying for?" "To make them useful. I need them to look perfect. People do not buy damaged goods." The potter placed the pieces on the table. "Then buy new cups." The merchant became angry. "I came a long way because people said you were the best." "They may be wrong." The merchant did not know how to respond. He was used to people praising him, persuading him, or asking for his money. The potter did none of these things. The merchant's name was Sava. He owned 3 shops in the city. He sold cloth, spices, lamps, bowls, and ornaments. He had spent his whole life learning what people desired. He knew how to place the finest objects near the entrance. He knew how to make ordinary things appear rare. He knew how to make customers feel incomplete until they bought something. But Sava himself never felt complete. He replaced every damaged object. He avoided old clothes. He dismissed workers who made visible mistakes. He did not like cracks. Cracks reminded him that control was temporary. His father had been poor. Their house had leaked. Their bowls had been chipped. Sava remembered the shame of inviting no one inside. He promised himself that when he became wealthy, nothing in his life would look broken. He kept that promise. His house was beautiful, his clothes were clean, his shops were admired, but inside him, the child from the leaking house still feared being seen. This happens. We build an adult life around protecting a childhood wound. We call it ambition, standards, discipline, success. Sometimes it is fear wearing expensive clothing. The potter lifted a cracked cup. "This can be repaired." Sava examined it. "The line will remain?" "Yes." "Then no one will buy it." "Perhaps not." "Why would anyone want to see the damage?" "Because the damage is true." Sava laughed. "People do not pay for truth. They pay for beauty." The potter looked at the shelves. "You believe truth and beauty are enemies." "A crack is not beautiful. Neither is pretending." Sava's face tightened. The potter did not argue further. He began working. Sava watched him clean the broken edges. The potter handled each piece as if it mattered. He did not curse the clay. He did not ask why it had broken. He studied the shape of the damage. Then he responded to what was there. This is compassion, not a soft feeling alone. Compassion is attention that does not turn away because something is difficult to look at. The potter did not love the crack because it was painful. He loved the chance to meet it with care. Sava pointed to a bowl with many bright lines. "That one looks worse than before. It was once in 20 pieces. Why spend so much time on it? It belonged to a woman who survived a fire. Could she not buy another?" "She did not want another." Sava shook his head. "People become attached to useless things." The potter looked at him. "What useless thing are you attached to?" Sava became still. The question entered too quickly. He thought of his father's old wooden spoon. It was the only object he had kept from childhood. He hid it in a locked box. The spoon was scratched, darkened, almost useless. He had never thrown it away. He told no one about it. "That is different," Sava said. The potter had not asked what it was. Still, Sava felt exposed. "Every person thinks their own attachment is different," the potter replied. Sava sat. For the first time, he looked at the repaired objects without thinking about price. A bowl repaired after a fire, a cup joined after a child knocked it down, a plate restored after an argument. The cracks were not decorations, they were records. This object broke. Someone cared enough to return. Sava thought about the people in his life, a worker he had dismissed after one mistake, a brother he had not spoken to in 10 years, a wife who had told him she felt lonely inside their large house. Each relationship had shown a crack. Sava had responded as he responded to damaged goods. Replace, remove, Hide. He believed this protected quality. Perhaps it protected him from the humility repair required. To repair something, we must admit it matters. We must slow down. We must accept that we cannot make it untouched again. Sava asked, "Have you ever broken anything?" The potter laughed. "Many things." "What was the worst?" "My son's trust." The room became quiet. The potter explained that years earlier his son had wanted to become a farmer. The potter expected him to continue the family craft. He mocked the boy's dream. He called him ungrateful. His son left. "Did he return?" Sava asked. "Yes." "How did you repair it?" "I apologized." "That was enough?" "No." "What else?" "I stopped demanding that my apology remove his pain." Sava listened carefully. The potter continued. "I visited him. I learned about farming. I helped during harvest. I allowed him to be cautious with me." "How long did it take?" "Years." Sava looked uncomfortable. He liked purchases because they gave immediate results. Pay the price. Receive the object. Human healing offered no such agreement. "You could have found another apprentice," Sava said. "I did not want an apprentice. I wanted my son." There it was. Replacement is sometimes easy because closeness is difficult. The potter gave Sava one repaired cup. "I did not ask for this." "No. What should I do with it?" "Use it." Sava turned it in his hands. The crack ran from the rim to the bottom. "What if it breaks again?" "Then you will know you used it." Sava stayed in the village that night. He drank tea from the repaired cup. It held the liquid. It did not apologize for its line. The cup was not pretending. Sava realized how tired he was from pretending. Pretending not to fear poverty. Pretending not to miss his brother. Pretending wealth had healed the child who once felt ashamed of a leaking roof. The next morning, Sava asked the potter to repair every cup that could still be used. "What will you do with them?" the potter asked. "Sell them." "As perfect?" Sava shook his head. "As repaired." He would tell each customer the truth. Some would refuse, some would understand. Before leaving, Sava asked, "How much do I owe you?" The potter gave him a price. Sava paid double. The potter returned the extra coins. "Why?" "You have already paid what the work costs." Sava stared at the coins in his hand. He had always believed enough money could solve any difficulty, but this man would not sell his honesty. Sava left the workshop carrying the repaired cups. He also carried a new question. If money could not purchase honesty, forgiveness, or healing, what could it purchase that would finally make his mind peaceful? He returned to the city determined to find the answer, and so began the story of the merchant who tried to buy peace. Sava returned to the city with repaired cups. He placed them near the entrance of his finest shop. A small sign stood beside them. These cups were broken. Care made them useful again. Some customers laughed, some walked past, but one old woman lifted a cup and traced the bright line with her finger. "How much?" she asked. Sava told her. She paid without arguing. "My husband broke our favorite bowl before he died," she said. "I threw it away because I could not bear to see the crack. I wish I had known repair was possible." She carried the cup home. By the end of the week, every repaired cup had been sold. Sava should have felt satisfied. Instead, the question from the potter grew louder. What could he buy that would make his mind peaceful? He began with simple things: a larger bed, soft blankets, rare incense, a fountain for his courtyard, musicians to play during dinner. The house became more comfortable. His mind did not. At night he lay awake. He remembered the potter drinking tea in a damaged workshop with more ease than Sava felt inside a beautiful home. So he searched for peace as he searched for valuable goods. He asked, travelers, monks, healers, fortune-tellers. One man sold him a stone said to remove worry. Another sold him oil that promised calm dreams. A teacher offered a secret phrase for a large donation. Sava bought everything. The stone became a stone. The oil smelled pleasant. The phrase filled 5 minutes. Then the old restlessness returned. We understand this search. Many people do not try to buy peace with coins. They try to buy it with achievement, attention, praise, control. They say, when I reach this level, then I will rest. When this person loves me, then I will feel whole. When I solve every problem, then I will breathe. But every purchase creates another thing to protect. Every achievement creates another height to maintain. The mind says, more. It rarely says, enough. This is craving. In Buddhist teaching, craving is not only wanting an object. It is the belief that the next object, feeling, person, or experience will complete us permanently. The problem is not that pleasant things are evil. The problem is that they change. The new house becomes familiar. Praise fades. The body ages. The perfect moment ends. When we ask temporary things to give permanent peace, suffering follows. Sava heard about an old teacher living outside the city. People said the teacher could give peace to anyone. Sava prepared a chest of coins. He traveled to the teacher's hut. The old teacher was sweeping leaves. "I have come to buy peace," Sava said. The teacher continued sweeping. "How much do you have?" Sava opened the chest. The coins shone. "Enough." The teacher looked inside. "No." Sava felt insulted. "I can bring more." "It will still not be enough." "Name your price." The teacher leaned on the broom. "1 bowl of water." Sava frowned. "That is all?" "That is the price." Sava found a bowl and filled it from a well. He brought it to the teacher. The teacher poured salt into the bowl. "Drink." Sava tasted it and immediately pulled away. "It is terrible." The teacher nodded. Then he took Sava to a lake. He poured the same amount of salt into the water. "Now drink." Sava knelt and tasted the lake. The water was fresh. "Where did the salt go?" the teacher asked. "It is still there." "Why can you not taste it?" "Because the lake is larger than the bowl." The teacher looked at him. "You have spent your life trying to remove every grain of salt." Sava waited. Every insult, every fear, every memory of poverty, every possibility of shame. You believe peace means nothing unpleasant entering your life. Does it not? No, peace is making the heart larger than what enters it. Sava looked at the lake. He had tried to control the world so nothing painful could reach him. He built walls with money. He removed cracked objects. He dismissed imperfect workers. He avoided difficult relationships. Still, pain entered. The bowl of his heart remained small. 1 grain of criticism could spoil the whole day. 1 business loss could destroy his sleep. 1 memory could make his wealth feel useless. "How do I make the heart larger?" he asked. "Stop building your whole life around yourself." Sava did not like this answer. "I employ many people. That may still be about you. I give money to temples. That may still be about you. I support my family. That may still be about controlling how they see you." Sava became angry. "You know nothing about me." The teacher nodded. "Then why are you afraid I may be right?" Sava stood. He considered taking his coins and leaving, but something in him was tired of purchasing answers that disappeared. So he sat. The teacher asked, "When was the last time you listened to someone without deciding whether their words were useful to you?" Sava could not remember. "When was the last time you gave something without wanting gratitude?" Again, no answer. "When was the last time you allowed another person to disappoint you without removing them from your life?" Sava thought of his brother. 10 years earlier, they had argued about their father's property. The brother accused Sava of taking more than his share. Sava called him jealous. They never spoke again. Sava had always believed the argument was about land. Now he saw something deeper. Both brothers were still frightened children trying to prove they would never be poor again. Sava asked, "Must I give away everything?" The teacher smiled. Rich people often hope Buddhism will tell them either to keep everything or abandon everything. Both answers allow them to think only about possessions. Then what should I do? Study your relationship with what you own. The teacher pointed to the chest. Do you use the coins, or do the coins use you? Sava remembered the paper found after the passenger crossed the river. What you carry is also carrying you. The same lesson had reached him through another road. Money required his attention. His shops demanded protection. His reputation demanded performance. He believed he owned these things, but they also owned his hours, his thoughts, and his fear. This did not mean he had to destroy his business. It meant he had to stop asking business to tell him who he was. For 7 days, Sava stayed with the teacher. He swept leaves, he carried water, he ate simple food. At first, he found every task useless. No profit, no growth, no praise. Then he noticed the quiet pleasure of completing one action without turning it into a measure of worth. Sweep this ground, drink this tea, hear this bird, breathe this breath. The present asked for less than his mind demanded. On the final day, Sava opened the chest of coins. Take them, he said. The teacher shook his head. I do not need them. Give them to the poor. You give them. Sava understood. Giving the chest to the teacher would have been another purchase. He would pay a price and expect peace in return. True generosity required relationship, attention, responsibility. When Sava returned to the city, he visited his workers. He asked what conditions made their lives difficult. At first, they were afraid to answer. He had trained them to hide every problem, so he listened without punishment. One worker needed time to care for an ill parent. Another had been underpaid. A third wanted to learn accounting but had never been allowed. Sava changed what he could, not to purchase their love, not to become known as a good man, because he finally understood that his well-being was connected to theirs. This is interdependence. Peace does not grow by placing the self at the center of everything. It grows when the wall between my suffering and their suffering becomes thinner. Sava also visited his brother. The brother opened the door and stared. I came to apologize, Sava said. For taking the land? For treating you like an enemy because I was afraid of becoming poor again. His brother remained silent. Sava did not demand forgiveness. He did not offer money. He stayed long enough to listen. The conversation was difficult. Old anger returned, but Sava no longer treated discomfort as proof that something should be abandoned. The repaired cup had taught him that a visible crack could still hold water. Months passed. Sava remained wealthy. He still managed his shops. He still enjoyed good food and beautiful things. But he stopped using them as proof that he was safe. He gave more, listened more, repaired more. And slowly his mind became less like a small bowl. It became wider, not free from salt, able to contain it. One evening, a beggar entered Sava's shop. The man wore torn clothing and carried only one coin. He placed it on the counter. I want to buy something for a hungry child, he said. Sava looked at the coin. It was barely enough for a small piece of bread, but the beggar was prepared to give away the last thing he owned. Sava had spent years trying to buy peace with abundance. The beggar was about to reveal what could be found in giving when almost nothing remained. The beggar placed his only coin on Sava's counter. I want to buy something for a hungry child, he said. Sava looked at the torn clothes, the thin arms, the bare feet covered in dust. You are hungry too, Sava said. Yes. Then keep the coin. The beggar shook his head. The child has not eaten since yesterday. Sava looked toward the door. A small girl stood outside. She was trying not to stare at the bread. Is she your daughter? No. Do you know her? I met her this morning. Sava looked again at the coin. It was barely enough to buy anything, yet the beggar held it as if it had a clear purpose. Sava had once believed generosity belonged to people with abundance. Give after the house is full. Give after the future is secure. Give when nothing important will be lost. But the beggar had almost nothing. Still, his first thought was not how to protect it. His first thought was how to use it to reduce another person's suffering. "What is your name?" Sava asked. "Palo." "Where did you get the coin?" "A woman gave it to me for carrying water." "And you worked for it?" "Yes." "Then why give it away?" Palo looked toward the child. "Because her hunger is here now." This is the heart of compassion. It does not always wait for perfect conditions. It sees suffering and responds with what is available. Sometimes what is available is money, sometimes food, sometimes time, sometimes only attention. The value of the gift is not measured only by its size. It is also measured by what the giver had to release. Sava placed a loaf of bread, fruit, and a small bowl of warm soup on the counter. Palo pushed the coin toward him. "Take it." "No," Sava said. "I do not want charity. It is not charity." "Then what is it?" Sava thought carefully. "It is my chance to join the kindness you already began." Palo studied him. Then he accepted. They carried the food outside. The girl ate quickly. Palo sat nearby but did not touch the bread. Sava broke off a piece and gave it to him. This time, Palo accepted. The three of them ate together beside the shop. People passed. Some looked at the wealthy merchant. Some looked at the beggar. Some looked away. Sava noticed how often people avoided the sight of poverty, not always because they were cruel, sometimes because suffering creates discomfort. It asks questions we do not want to answer. Why do I have more? What do I owe? Could this happen to me? So we turn away. But Buddhist compassion begins by turning toward, seeing clearly, not imagining ourselves above the person who suffers, not reducing them to their pain. Palo had no home, but he was not only homeless, he was observant, patient, generous. He knew where the city wells were cleanest. He knew which streets were safe at night. He knew which shopkeepers gave old food and which threw it away. His poverty was real. It was not his whole identity. Sava asked, "Why are you living on the street?" Palo looked at the empty bowl. "I once had a farm." "What happened?" "A dry season came, then another." "You lost the land." "I borrowed money to buy seed. The rain did not return. The lender took the farm." "Did you have family?" "A wife." "Where is she?" "She became ill during the second dry season." Sava understood what Palo did not need to say. The farm was gone. The wife was gone. The life he had built had disappeared. "And you still give away your last coin?" Sava asked. Palo looked at him. "Losing everything taught me something." "What?" "Nothing I hold stays mine forever." Sava had heard monks speak about impermanence. He had read words about it. But Palo had lived it. Land, health, marriage, security, all had changed. Palo could have become hard. Instead, loss had loosened his grip. This does not happen automatically. Pain can close the heart. It can also open it. The difference often depends on what meaning we give to what happened. Palo did not believe loss made him less human. He believed it made him more able to recognize hunger in another face. Sava asked him to work at the shop. Palo laughed. "You do not know whether I can be trusted. You gave away your last coin. That does not make me good at selling cloth." Sava smiled. "Then do not sell cloth." "What should I do?" "Help me notice who enters this shop unseen." Palo became quiet. Sava had workers who counted money, arranged goods, cleaned shelves. But no one was responsible for seeing the people others ignored. Palo accepted the work. He was given food, clothing, and a small room. At first, customers avoided him. His face was known from the streets. Some whispered that Sava had become foolish, but Palo did not try to impress them. He watched. When an old man entered and could not read the labels, Palo helped him. When a mother counted coins 3 times, Palo quietly showed her what she could afford. When a child stole bread, Palo did not shout. He followed the child and learned that 2 younger children were waiting outside. Sava began setting aside food each evening, not scraps, real food. Food he would have eaten himself. This is an important difference. Generosity is easy when we give what we do not value. Compassion asks us to recognize that others deserve the same care we desire. Months passed. Palo saved part of his wages. One day, Sava saw him placing coins into a small bag. "Are you buying land again?" he asked. "No." "What are you saving for?" "Seeds." "For which field?" "I do not have one." Palo explained that families outside the city had lost crops after poor rain. He wanted to buy seeds they could plant when the weather changed. "You might lose the money," Sava said. "Yes." "The rain may fail." "Yes." "Then why do it?" "Because uncertainty is not a reason to stop planting." Sava remembered how he once demanded guarantees from life. He wanted every purchase to produce peace, every apology to produce forgiveness, every good action to produce praise. Palo expected no guarantee. He simply responded to the suffering before him. This is generosity without attachment to results. We do what is wise. We offer what we can. Then we release the demand that life reward us exactly as expected. Sava added coins to the seed bag. Palo looked at him. "Do not give because you feel guilty for having more." "Why not?" "Guilt becomes tired." "What should I give from?" "Understanding." Sava nodded. Guilt says, "I am bad because another person suffers." Compassion says, "Your suffering matters because your life is connected to mine." One centers the giver, the other sees the relationship. When the rainy season approached, Palo traveled to the villages with bags of seeds. Sava went with him. They did not know which fields would grow. They planted anyway. Weeks later, green shoots appeared, not in every field. Some seeds failed, some were washed away, but enough survived. Among the fields was a small garden cared for by an old woman. She never pulled a flower open. She never shouted at seeds for growing slowly. She simply created the conditions and waited. Palo watched her work. "This garden is peaceful," he said. The woman smiled, "because nothing here is forced to bloom." And that became the beginning of the next story. The old woman's name was Saya. Her garden stood behind a small house at the edge of the village. It was not the largest garden. It did not have the rarest flowers, but people felt different when they entered it. The paths were narrow, the trees were allowed to lean, flowers opened in different seasons. Some plants were full of color, others were still only green. There were empty spaces where nothing had grown. Saya did not hide them. Palo walked slowly between the rows. "How do you make everything so peaceful?" he asked. "I do not make it peaceful," Saya said. "I stop disturbing what is already trying to grow." Sava looked at a young plant supported by a thin stick. "This one looks weak." "It is young. Will it flower?" "Perhaps." "When?" "When its conditions are ready." Sava smiled. Merchants did not like such answers. They wanted dates, results, promises, but the garden offered none. Saya moved from plant to plant. She watered the dry soil, removed insects, cut away dead leaves. Then she stopped. She did not command the roots. She did not pull the stems upward. She did her part and allowed life to do the rest. Many people know how to work. Few know how to stop working when force becomes harmful. We often treat ourselves like impatient gardeners. We say, "You should be healed by now. You should know your purpose. You should be more successful. You should no longer miss that person." We compare our hidden roots to someone else's visible flowers. Then we call ourselves failures because our season is different. Buddhist wisdom asks us to see causes and conditions. A flower does not bloom because it is morally better than a seed. It blooms because certain conditions have come together. Light, water, soil, warmth, time. Human beings also unfold through conditions: safety, support, practice, honest effort, rest. A person cannot always force an inner season to arrive. Palo noticed a plant with many leaves but no flowers. What is wrong with this one? Nothing, but the others are blooming. This one gives shade. Palo touched the leaves. The plant had spent years being judged by visitors. People asked why it produced no flowers. Saya never asked. She noticed what it actually offered. This is a form of wisdom. Much suffering comes from measuring a life only by what we expected it to produce. A person may not become wealthy, but perhaps they become dependable. A relationship may not last forever, but perhaps it teaches honesty. A quiet season may produce no visible achievement, but perhaps it restores a tired mind. Not every life must bloom in the same way. A young woman named Mina worked in the garden. She moved quickly, too quickly. She watered plants that were already wet. She pulled at vines. She checked buds several times each hour. Saya watched without criticism. Finally, Mina said, "Why is my flower not opening?" "Because it is closed." "I know that." "Then what are you asking?" "I am asking how to make it open." "You cannot." Mina became frustrated. "I planted it, I watered it, I protected it." "Yes, then it should bloom." Saya sat beside her. "Care does not create ownership over the result." Mina looked away. She was not truly speaking about the flower. Her younger brother had become silent after their father died. Mina had tried everything. She cooked his favorite meals, told jokes, asked questions, gave advice, took him to teachers. Still, he remained distant. Mina believed she was failing him. She treated his grief like a closed flower that embarrassed her care. "What if he never becomes who he was?" she asked. Saya understood. "He will not." Mina's eyes filled. "That is cruel." "It is true." The person her brother had been before the loss could not return unchanged. Grief had entered his life. Time had moved. Healing would not restore the old boy. It might help a different person emerge. This is why love must be flexible. If we love only the version of someone we remember, our care can become pressure. We keep saying, "Come back." But perhaps they are trying to move forward. Saya showed Mina a tree struck by lightning. One side was black. A large branch had fallen, but new growth had appeared lower on the trunk. The tree did not heal by becoming the tree it was before, Saya said. It found another way to live. Mina placed her hand against the bark. "What should I do for my brother?" "Sit near him without demanding a flower." This sounds passive. It is not. To remain present without controlling another person's healing requires great patience. We want to fix because fixing reduces our discomfort. We want them to smile so we can stop worrying. But compassion asks, what does this person need? Not, what do I need them to become? Mina returned home. Her brother was sitting outside. Usually she asked whether he wanted to talk. That evening she said nothing. She sat beside him. Minutes passed, then an hour. The brother watched the sky. Mina stayed. At last he said, "Everyone keeps trying to make me feel better." Mina breathed. "I know. I do not want to feel better today." "Then you do not have to." He looked at her. For the first time in months his face softened. "Can you sit here anyway?" "Yes." Nothing dramatic happened. No sudden healing. No speech filled with wisdom. They sat, but pressure left the space between them. And sometimes pressure is the very thing preventing the heart from opening. Back in the garden, Sava asked Saya whether she ever became impatient. "Every day," she said. "What do you do?" "I notice impatience without giving it the tools." She pointed toward a flower bud. "Impatience may speak. It may not pull." This is mindfulness in action. Feelings are allowed. Not every feeling should become behavior. Anger may arise. We do not have to wound. Fear may arise. We do not have to control. Impatience may arise. We do not have to force. Palo helped Saya spread seeds in an empty part of the garden. "How long before they grow?" he asked. "Some may rise in days. And the others? Some may remain beneath the soil for a long time. How will we know they are alive? We may not." Palo looked at the earth. Much of life happens where we cannot see it. A person may appear unchanged while understanding is forming quietly. An apology may seem rejected but begin working years later. A practice may feel useless while slowly changing how the mind responds. We mistake invisibility for failure. The garden teaches otherwise. Before leaving, Sava offered Saya money to make the garden larger. She accepted only enough to repair the well. "Why not expand?" he asked. "More is not always healthier." Sava smiled. He had once spent his whole life learning that lesson. Palo visited the garden often. He watched the seasons change. Some flowers opened, some died before blooming. Saya grieved each loss without calling the garden a failure. One plant remained closed long after the others had faded. Visitors stopped noticing it. Saya continued watering it. Then one quiet morning, after everyone had left, the flower opened. Only one person was there to see it. And that person had spent years believing unseen beauty had no value. The person who saw the flower open was a young painter named Erie. He had come to the garden hoping to paint something beautiful enough to make people admire him. For years, Erie had wanted recognition, not simply to create, to be seen creating. He imagined crowds standing before his work. He imagined teachers praising his skill. He imagined people remembering his name after he died. But success had not come. His paintings were careful, technically strong. Still, people walked past them. Some said they felt cold. Others said they looked beautiful but empty. Erie hated those words. He worked harder. He used brighter colors, larger surfaces, more difficult designs. The paintings became impressive. They did not become alive. One afternoon he entered Saya's garden. He saw the closed flower. It was plain, small, almost hidden beneath leaves. He decided to paint it. "Come back tomorrow," a visitor told him. "It may open." So Irie returned the next day. The flower remained closed. He returned again, still closed. For 12 mornings he came with his paints. He began to resent the plant. "Why will it not open?" he asked Saya. "It has not finished being closed." "That makes no sense." "Only because you believe closed means incomplete." Erie wanted the flower because he imagined the painting of its opening would bring attention. He did not care about the plant. He cared about what it could do for him. This is another form of attachment. We may look at people, talents, and experiences not as they are, but as things that can build our identity. A friend becomes proof we are loved. A child becomes proof we succeeded. A spiritual practice becomes proof we are wise. Even beauty can become something we use. The flower remained closed. Visitors became bored. One by one they stopped coming. Erie almost stopped too. But something had changed. After many days of sitting near the same plant, he began noticing details. A pale line along each leaf, tiny insects moving beneath the stem, water gathering at the edge of the bud. The flower had not opened, yet it was not doing nothing. Erie began sketching the closed form. At first he considered the sketches failures. Then he looked again. The bud contained tension, patience, hidden movement. It was beautiful before becoming what everyone was waiting for. This recognition reached something inside him. Eerie had spent his life treating himself like the unopened flower. He believed his life would begin when people noticed him. Until then, everything was preparation. Everything was incomplete. He had not allowed his unseen days to have value, but the hidden days were still life, the practice, the failed paintings, the mornings alone, the hand learning to move, the eye learning to see. Recognition was not the flower. It was only one possible visitor. Eerie continued painting, not the flower he hoped would appear, the flower that was present. Saya watched him. "You are looking differently," she said. I stopped asking it to perform. And what happened? I began to see it. This is true in human relationships too. We often cannot see someone because we are too busy waiting for them to become useful to our hopes. We do not see the child because we are watching the future adult. We do not see the partner because we are measuring them against an ideal. We do not see ourselves because we are staring at who we think we should become. Mindfulness is the practice of meeting what is here before demanding what comes next. On the 21st morning, rain fell. No visitors entered the garden. Saya had gone to the village. Eerie sat alone under a small shelter. He considered leaving. Then the rain softened. Sunlight passed through the clouds. The closed flower moved. Slowly, almost without drama, the petals opened. No music played, no crowd gathered. No one praised the moment. The flower simply opened because its conditions had arrived. Eerie felt tears fill his eyes. His first thought was to call someone. His second was to begin painting quickly. Then he stopped. For several breaths, he did nothing. He allowed the flower to exist without turning it into a possession. This was new. Beauty did not always need to become content. A lesson, a product, a story about ourselves. Some moments are complete before we use them. Eerie bowed to the flower. Then he began to paint. He did not try to make it more dramatic. He painted the wet leaves, the uneven petals, the empty garden, the grey sky, the fact that no one else was there. The painting took several hours. When Saya returned, she stood behind him. "This is your best work," she said. Eerie waited for pride to rise. It did. He noticed it. Then he returned to the painting. "Why is it better?" he asked. "Because you stopped asking the flower to prove that you are special." Eerie looked at the canvas. His earlier paintings had been created to control the viewer. "Admire me. Notice me. Remember me." This painting asked nothing. It simply offered attention. That is why it felt alive. Good art, like compassion, can become a form of seeing without possession. Eerie took the painting to the city. He placed it in a small public room. Few people came. Some passed quickly. One old woman stood before it for a long time. She began to cry. "My sister loved flowers," she said. Eerie did not explain the painting. He did not tell her what to feel. He simply stood nearby. The painting had reached one person. For the first time, that felt enough. This does not mean ambition is wrong. It means ambition becomes painful when our worth depends entirely on the response of others. We may create with care, work with discipline, share what we make, but we cannot control who notices. Attachment to recognition turns every quiet room into rejection. Freedom allows us to ask a different question. Was I present? Was I honest? Did I give the work my full attention? These questions belong to us. The crowd does not. Eerie continued painting. Some works sold, others did not. Praise came, criticism came, both passed. He practiced receiving them as weather. One did not make him complete, the other did not make him worthless. Months later, he returned to Saya's garden. The flower had already faded. Its petals had fallen into the soil. Eerie felt sadness. Saya said, "You did not expect it to remain open forever." "No." "Then why are you surprised?" "Understanding impermanence does not stop the heart from feeling." Saya smiled. "Good. Buddhist wisdom does not remove tenderness. It teaches us to feel without demanding permanence. The flower mattered because it opened. It also mattered because it faded. Its briefness invited attention. Iri gathered no petals. He took no part of the plant home. He left it where it had lived. Near the path, an old nun was watching leaves fall from a tree. She spoke to each leaf as if it were an old friend. Iri listened. The nun had learned something about endings that no painting could fully hold. And her story began as the final petal touched the ground. The old nun stood beneath the tree. A yellow leaf loosened from a branch. It turned slowly in the air. The nun watched it fall. "Thank you," she said. Iri looked around. No one else was near. Another leaf dropped. "Go gently," the nun whispered. Iri approached. "Are you speaking to the leaves?" "Yes." "Can they hear you?" "I do not know." "Then why speak?" The nun smiled. "You ask the same question people ask about prayer." Iri sat beneath the tree. The nun's name was Pema. She had lived in monasteries for most of her life. People came to her for advice about grief, illness, age, death. They believed she was peaceful because she had accepted impermanence. They did not know acceptance had taken her many years. When Pema was young, she hated endings. She cried when guests left. She kept broken objects. She avoided funerals. She became angry each autumn when trees lost their leaves. "The world seemed careless," she told Iri. "It gave beauty, then took it back." "What changed?" he asked. "I became tired of arguing with seasons." Pema picked up a fallen leaf. Its edges were dry. Its color was fading. "Look closely," she said. Iri looked. The leaf was marked with small lines. Some parts were brown. One side had been eaten by an insect. "It is dying," he said. "It is changing." Is that not the same? Death is one change among many. The leaf had once been a bud, then soft green, then wide and strong. It had taken sunlight. It had given shade. Now it was becoming dry. Soon it would become part of the soil. The leaf was not disappearing into nothing. Its form was changing. Buddhist teaching speaks of impermanence not to make life feel empty. It asks us to see that life is movement. A wave does not fail because it returns to the sea. A flame does not fail because it goes out after giving light. A person does not become meaningless because the body changes and ends. Still, Pema did not use impermanence to avoid grief. When her teacher died, she cried for many days. A younger nun asked, "Why are you grieving if you understand that everything changes?" Pema answered, "Understanding rain does not keep the body dry. Wisdom does not remove every feeling. It changes the way we hold feeling. Grief may come, but we no longer treat grief as proof that something has gone wrong. It is the heart responding to change." Iri told Pema about the flower, how it opened when no one else was present, how it later faded. "I wanted to keep it," he admitted. Pema nodded. To love something is to feel the wish that it might stay. Is that attachment? The wish may arise naturally. Attachment begins when we demand that life obey it. A leaf landed on Pema's robe. She held it in her palm. "I would be glad if this tree remained green all year, but it cannot." "What if you refuse to accept that?" "The leaves still fall. Only I fall with them. This is the extra suffering resistance creates. Change already carries pain. Resistance adds an argument. This should not be happening. They should not leave. My body should not age. My life should have remained as it was. The argument cannot stop change. It only makes us absent from the life that is still here. Pema had once cared for an older nun named Asha. Asha's body became weak. She could no longer walk to the temple hall. Pema tried to keep her comfortable, but secretly she also tried to keep her alive for herself. She encouraged more food, more medicine, more effort. One evening, Asha said, "You are holding my branch." Pema did not understand. Asha pointed through the window. A single leaf shook in the wind. "The tree is not cruel for releasing it." "I am not ready," Pema said. Asha smiled. "You do not have to be ready for change to be true." Those words wounded Pema. They also freed her. For the final days, she stopped filling every silence with encouragement. She sat beside Asha, held her hand, listened. Asha spoke about childhood, mistakes, moments of joy. Then one morning she died quietly. Pema felt the old anger return. The world had given someone precious, then taken the form away. But as she washed Asha's bowl, Pema noticed how much of her teacher remained. The way Pema folded robes, the patience she showed younger nuns, the words she used when someone was frightened. Asha no longer sat in the room, yet her life continued as influence, like a leaf becoming soil for another tree. This did not make death painless. It made separation less complete than it first appeared. Pema began speaking to falling leaves after that. Not because she believed each leaf needed comfort, because she needed practice. Each leaf was a small teaching. Here is another ending. Can you remain present? Can you appreciate what was without demanding more? Can you release what the branch can no longer hold? Erie asked. Does letting go mean we stop caring? Pema laughed. No. People often hold tightly because they are afraid letting go will make them cold. She opened her hand. The leaf rested there. True letting go allows care without possession. She lifted her palm. The wind carried the leaf away. If I close my hand, she said, I may keep the leaf for a little longer, but I crush the very thing I want to protect. This happens in relationships. A parent controls a child because love fears distance. A partner demands constant reassurance because love fears loss. A friend becomes jealous because love fears replacement. The hand closes. Then the relationship cannot breathe. Letting go does not mean abandoning people. It means allowing them to be changing lives, not objects kept for our security. The afternoon grew colder. More leaves fell. Pema spoke to each one. Thank you. Go gently. You gave enough. Erie felt something soften inside him. He had spent years fearing that unseen work was wasted. But leaves fell unseen every day. They still fed the soil. A life did not require an audience to have value. Before leaving, Erie asked Pema, what is the hardest thing you have not yet released? The nun looked toward the mountains. My own life. You are afraid to die? Sometimes. Irie was surprised. You speak about endings as if you understand them. I understand enough to know fear may still visit. This honesty mattered. Wisdom is not the performance of fearlessness. It is the ability to meet fear without lying. Pema stood. Her knees were weak. Irie offered his arm. They walked toward the monastery. Behind them, a single green leaf remained on a low branch. It shook each time the wind moved. Unlike the others, it seemed unwilling to fall. Pema stopped and looked at it. That leaf believes the branch is saving it, she said, but perhaps the branch is already emptying its hand. The green leaf held on through the evening, through the night, through the next morning. It was not ready to release the tree, and so the next story would belong to the leaf that feared letting go. The green leaf remained on the branch. All around it, the other leaves had fallen. Some rested beneath the tree. Some had been carried into the garden. Some had disappeared beyond the monastery wall. But this leaf held on. Each time the wind moved, it tightened around the branch. "I am not ready," the leaf seemed to say. Pema stood beneath the tree and watched. Eerie stood beside her. "Why has it not fallen?" he asked. "Perhaps it believes holding on will keep it alive." The leaf had grown on that branch in spring. It remembered the first warm sunlight, the gentle rain, the birds resting nearby. The branch had held it through storms. The tree had fed it. To the leaf, the branch was not only wood, it was home. The thought of leaving felt like losing everything. We understand this. We hold on to people, places, roles, and old versions of ourselves because they once gave us safety, a job that now makes us unhappy, a friendship that has become painful, a dream that no longer belongs to who we are, a memory that prevents us from entering the present. We tell ourselves we are being loyal. Sometimes we are only afraid. The leaf looked down. The ground seemed far away. It could not see what waited there. It imagined being crushed, forgotten, buried beneath other leaves. The branch felt certain. The air did not. This is why uncertainty frightens us. The known may be painful, but it has a shape. We know where it begins. We know how to survive it. The unknown offers no such comfort, so we remain where we are, not because it is peaceful, but because it is familiar. Pema touched the tree. "The branch cannot hold it forever," she said. "Will the branch push it away?" Irie asked. "No, the connection will simply become too weak." The seasons had already changed. The tree was pulling its energy inward. The leaf could not remain green because it wished to. Life was moving. Resistance did not stop the movement. It only made each gust feel like an attack. This is the suffering of attachment. Change arrives. The mind says no. Change continues. The mind tightens. Then every movement becomes painful. The leaf believed the wind was trying to take it. It did. Not understand that the wind was only moving as wind moves. Not everything that changes our life is our enemy. Sometimes there is no enemy, only conditions changing. The leaf held on through another day. The edges began to dry. Its green color softened into yellow. A small tear appeared near the stem. Still, it held. "Is holding on always wrong?" Irie asked. Pema shook her head. "A person should hold on when holding serves life." "To what?" "To kindness, to practice, to truth, to the decision not to harm." "Then how do we know when to release?" Pema looked at the leaf. "Ask whether holding is protecting life or only protecting fear." This question is not always easy. A parent may call control protection. A wounded person may call bitterness strength. A tired person may call endless work responsibility. The mind is skilled at giving fear a noble name. We need honest attention. What is this holding doing to me? What is it doing to others? Does it create wisdom, or does it only delay what I know is already changing? That night, rain returned. The leaf became heavy with water. The branch bent beneath it. The leaf was frightened. It remembered every story it had heard from the fallen leaves. One had spoken of becoming soil. Another dreamed of traveling to the river. A third said the fall lasted only a moment. But the green leaf had believed none of them. How could they know? They had already released. It was still here. This is another reason we resist wisdom. Advice from someone who has crossed the river may sound simple to someone still standing on the bank. Let go, people say. Move forward. Accept what happened. But they do not feel the fingers tightening inside us. They do not know what the branch meant. They do not know what falling seems to threaten. Compassion does not shout at the leaf. It does not shame the hand for closing. It understands that release comes when fear is met, not ignored. The next morning, Pema returned alone. She sat beneath the tree. The leaf shook in the cold air. Pima spoke softly. "You do not have to know where the wind will take you." The leaf moved. "You only have to know that this branch has already given what it could." The sun rose. A little warmth reached the tree. The leaf remembered spring. For a moment, it felt grief. Not only fear. Grief for the sunlight that would not return in the same way. Grief for birds that had flown south. Grief for the green life it had known. This mattered. Fear had kept the leaf fighting. Grief allowed it to say goodbye. We often cannot release because we have not allowed ourselves to mourn. We try to move forward without admitting what is ending. But letting go is not only opening the hand, it is honoring what the hand once held. The leaf had loved the branch. The branch had held it faithfully. Neither had failed. The season had changed. A strong wind moved through the monastery. The leaf tightened once more. Then it looked at the ground. Among the fallen leaves, small green shoots were beginning to rise. The leaf understood something. The ground was not only a place where things ended, it was also a place where things became part of what came next. The wind returned. This time the leaf did not tighten. The stem loosened. For one brief moment it remained between branch and sky. Then it fell. It turned in the air. The monastery roof passed beneath it. The garden moved below. The tree became smaller. The leaf had feared falling for many days. But the fall itself lasted only a few breaths. The wind caught it before it reached the ground. It lifted the leaf over the wall, across the road, toward the hills. The leaf had spent its whole life believing home was the branch. Now the wind was carrying it toward another kind of home. The wind carried the leaf beyond the monastery. It rose above the road, passed over fields, turned above the river. The leaf could no longer see the branch. At first, fear returned. Without the tree, it felt weightless. Without the branch, it had nothing to hold. But the wind held it differently. Not with roots, not with certainty, with movement. The leaf had believed safety meant remaining still. Now it discovered that something could be carried without being controlled. The wind did not explain where they were going. It simply continued. This is how life often moves us. A door closes, a person leaves, an illness changes the body, a plan fails. We are carried into a life we did not choose. At first, everything feels wrong because it is unfamiliar. We look backward and call the old place home. But home is not always the place we left. Sometimes home is the place where we finally stop fighting what has changed. The leaf passed over a village. Smoke rose from cooking fires. Children ran through narrow streets. Dogs slept beneath carts. The leaf fell toward a roof. Then the wind lifted it again. "Where are you taking me?" the leaf seemed to ask. The wind gave no answer. Some questions can only be answered by arrival. The leaf traveled through the afternoon. It saw places the branch had never shown it. A field where farmers gathered rice. A woman washing clothes beside a stream. An old man resting beneath a tree. A group of monks walking silently along a road. The world was larger than the leaf had imagined. Attachment had made the branch feel like the whole universe. This happens to us. One relationship ends, and we think love has ended. One dream fails, and we think purpose has ended. One identity changes, and we think the self has disappeared. Pain narrows the world. Movement widens it again. The wind carried the leaf toward the mountains. Night approached. The air became cold. The leaf wished for the branch. It remembered how secure it had felt. Then it remembered the final days, the dryness, the fear, the constant effort to hold. Memory often softens the past. We remember what was beautiful and forget what had already become painful. This is why people return to what they have outgrown. Not always because the old place is right. Because memory edits the suffering. The leaf allowed itself to miss the branch. It did not confuse missing with needing to return. That is a deep form of freedom. We can love what was. We can wish it had lasted longer. We can feel tenderness for the old life and still continue. The wind lowered the leaf toward a valley. There stood a small house with a damaged roof. Beside it was a garden. In the garden, a child was burying seeds. The leaf landed beside the child's hand. The child picked it up. "What a beautiful leaf," she said. The leaf was surprised. Its color had faded. Its edges were dry. It had believed beauty belonged only to its green days. The child carried it inside. Her grandmother was making tea. "Where did this come from?" the grandmother asked. "The wind brought it." "Then perhaps it has traveled far." The child placed the leaf on the table. "I will keep it forever." The grandmother smiled. "You may keep it for a while." "No, forever." The child frowned. She had lost her mother the year before. Since then, she hated anything that disappeared. She kept feathers, broken toys, dead flowers, small stones from every road she walked. Each object seemed to say, "Something can stay." The grandmother understood. She did not take the leaf away. She did not lecture the child about impermanence. Wisdom given too quickly can feel like another loss. So she said, "Keep it near your bed." The child did. For several days the leaf rested beside her pillow. Its color became darker. Its body became brittle. One morning the child touched it and a small piece broke away. She began to cry. "It is dying." "It changed before you found it," the grandmother said. "I want it to stay." "I know. Why does everything leave?" The grandmother sat beside her. "Not everything leaves in the same way." The child looked confused. "Your mother left the form you knew," the grandmother continued, "but the songs she taught you remain. The way you care for injured animals remains. The way you laugh with your whole face remains." The child held the leaf carefully. "Is that the same as having her here?" "No." The grandmother did not offer a comforting lie. "It is not the same, but it is not nothing." The child looked at the dry leaf. It had left the tree. The wind had carried it. Now it rested in her hand. Perhaps leaving one place did not mean becoming meaningless. Perhaps the leaf had not been lost. It had entered another story. The grandmother took the child into the garden. "Place it here," she said. The child resisted. "The soil will make it dirty. The soil will change it. Then it will disappear. It will become part of the ground." The child thought about this. She wanted the leaf beside her bed, but she also saw the young seeds beneath the soil. Will it help them grow? Perhaps. The child knelt. Slowly, she placed the leaf on the earth. She covered it with a little soil. Then she whispered, "Thank you for coming." This was not forgetting. It was giving the leaf a new place. The child visited the spot every morning. At first, nothing happened. Then rain came. The leaf softened. Its shape began to disappear. Weeks later, a small green shoot rose nearby. The child believed the leaf had become the plant. The grandmother explained that many things had helped: soil, water, sunlight, the old leaf, the seed itself. Nothing grows from one cause alone. This is interdependence. The leaf did not become the plant by itself, but it became part of the conditions that allowed the plant to rise. The child smiled. The leaf had reached home, not the old home of branch and tree. A larger home, the earth that had always held the tree, the soil that would hold new roots. Perhaps home was never only one place. Perhaps it was the great web of life in which nothing existed alone. The wind moved again. It passed through the new plant, across the garden, into the village. But the wind found something strange there, Doors were opening before sunrise. Lamps were burning long after midnight. People moved quickly. No one sat beneath the trees. No one watched the clouds. The village had learned how to work. It had forgotten how to rest. The village woke before the birds. Farmers entered the fields in darkness. Shopkeepers opened their doors before sunrise. Children carried baskets, water, tools, and books. Even the old people found small tasks because sitting still made them feel guilty. The village had once been peaceful. People worked hard, but they also rested beneath trees. They ate together. They watched the evening sky. Then a wealthy trader visited. He told them the nearby villages were growing faster. They produce more rice, he said. They sell more cloth. They build larger houses. The villagers became afraid of falling behind, so they worked longer. At first, the extra effort brought results. More food, more money, new roofs, better roads. People praised the change. Then work became a habit. Habit became identity. A person who rested was called lazy. A child who moved slowly was called useless. A farmer who stopped during the heat was told to be stronger. Soon, no one knew when enough had been reached. This is how striving changes. It begins as a tool, then it becomes a master. The village measured everything: baskets filled, fields cleared, coins earned, hours used. But no one measured tiredness, no one measured patience, no one measured how many meals were eaten without conversation, how many children stopped asking questions because adults were always busy, how many people lay awake even when their bodies were exhausted. The child who had buried the leaf lived in this village. Her name was Anu. Her grandmother called her slowly growing grass, not because she was weak, because she noticed things others passed. Anu watched ants crossing the road. She listened to water before drinking. She asked why the moon followed them home. The villagers often told her to hurry. One morning, Anu's father collapsed in the field. He did not die, but his body had become too tired to continue. The village healer said, "He needs rest." Anu's father became ashamed. "I can return tomorrow." "No," the healer said. Then the next day, "No. What will people think?" The healer looked at him. "Your body has already answered what people think." Anu's father lay at home, but he did not rest. He counted unfinished tasks. He imagined weeds growing. He thought about other farmers working. His body was still. His mind remained in the field. This is not rest. Rest is not only stopping movement, it is releasing the belief that worth depends on constant doing. Many people lie down while continuing to run inside. They replay work, plan tomorrow, judge themselves for being tired. The body is on the bed. The mind is still carrying tools. Anu sat beside her father. "Why are you angry?" she asked. "I am not angry." "You are holding your face like this." She tightened her jaw. Her father almost smiled. Then he looked away. "I should be working." "Why?" "Because there is work. There is always work." He looked at her. The child had said what the entire village had forgotten. There is always more work. Another field, another message, another task, another goal. If rest must wait until nothing remains, rest will never come. That evening, Anu's grandmother told them an old Buddhist teaching. A musician once tightened the strings of his instrument too much. They broke. When he left them too loose, they made no music. Only when they were held with balance did the instrument sing. "Life is like this," the grandmother said. "Too little effort creates neglect. Too much effort creates breaking." Anu's father understood the words, but understanding did not remove his shame. The next day, villagers came to visit. They did not ask how he felt. They asked when he would return. One man said, "We all become tired." Another said, "Strong people continue." A third said, "The harvest will not wait." Their words were not cruel on purpose. They were afraid. If Anu's father was allowed to rest, perhaps they were also tired. If exhaustion was real, then their whole way of living might need to change. People often defend harmful systems because changing them would require admitting how much they have already suffered. Anu watched the adults. Then she asked, "When does the field rest?" The farmers looked at her. "In the dry season," one answered. "Why?" "So the soil can recover." "What happens if it never rests?" "It becomes weak." "Then why are people expected to be stronger than soil?" No one answered. The question traveled through the village. A farmer repeated it to his wife. The wife repeated it at the well. A shopkeeper heard it. A teacher wrote it on a small board. Why are people expected to be stronger than soil? The villagers began noticing signs they had ignored. A mother who cried each morning before opening her shop. A child who fell asleep during lessons. A farmer whose hands shook. An old woman who had stopped visiting friends because every hour was considered useful only if it produced something. The village had increased its wealth, but it had become poor in attention, poor in joy, poor in quiet. The leaders called a meeting. They argued. Some believed rest would make the village weak. Others said the village was already weakening. At last, the healer spoke. "You treat tired bodies and then return them to the same life that made them tired." The room became silent. The teacher added, "We teach children to work, but not how to stop." Anu's grandmother said, "A person who cannot rest is not free. They are obeying fear." The villagers did not change in one night. Deep habits rarely disappear after one wise sentence, but they agreed to begin. One afternoon each week, the shops would close. No fieldwork except what was necessary to protect animals or crops. Families would eat together. People could sleep, walk, talk, sit. At first, the rest day felt uncomfortable. Some villagers secretly cleaned. Others opened their shops through the back door. Several men gathered and spoke only about work. The body may stop before the mind learns how. Anu saw people struggling. She understood that they needed more than permission to rest. They needed to remember how. So the next rest day, she stood in the center of the village. She asked everyone to sit. Then she said, "Before we learn to rest, we should learn to breathe." The adults almost laughed. They had been breathing their whole lives. But Anu knew there was a difference between breathing and noticing the breath. And that difference was about to change the village. Anu stood in the center of the village. Farmers sat on the ground. Shopkeepers leaned against closed doors. Children gathered near the well. The village leaders stood at the back. Everyone was waiting for the child to explain breathing. Anu felt nervous. She looked at her grandmother. The old woman smiled. So Anu began. "Put down what you are holding." Some people looked at their empty hands, but they were still holding things inside. Plans, worries, judgments, the memory of unfinished work. Anu continued, "Sit as you are." A farmer straightened his back too quickly. A shopkeeper tried to look peaceful. Anu shook her head. "You do not have to look calm." This was important. People often turn rest into another performance. They try to sit perfectly, breathe correctly, empty the mind. Then they become upset when peace does not arrive. The village had turned work into competition. Now it was in danger of turning calm into competition too. Anu sat on the ground. "Feel the breath enter," she said. The villagers breathed. "Feel it leave." Some people closed their eyes. Others kept them open. A dog walked between them. A child laughed. The village was not silent, but something had begun to slow. "Do not change the breath," Anu said. "Just know it is here." Her father watched from beneath a tree. He had been breathing shallowly for years, always preparing for the next task. Now he noticed the air reaching his chest, then leaving. Nothing was being produced. No field grew. No coin appeared. Yet this breath was keeping him alive. The most necessary act in his life had been happening without praise, without effort, without being counted. This realization softened him. Anu said, "When a thought comes, let it come." A farmer thought about weeds. A mother remembered bread in the oven. A boy worried about tomorrow's lesson. The thoughts came, then returned to the breath. This is mindfulness. Not forcing the mind to become empty, not becoming angry because thought appears, simply noticing when attention has wandered and returning. Again and again. The return is the practice. Some villagers became impatient after a few breaths. "How long will this take?" one man asked. Anu opened her eyes. "How long will what take?" Becoming calm, Anu thought. Maybe calm is not something we force to happen. Maybe we are only sitting long enough to notice what is already here. The man frowned. His mind was full of noise. There seemed to be no calm inside him. But beneath the thoughts, the breath continued. Beneath the breath, the body was supported by the ground. Around him, people sat together. Calm did not mean no noise. It meant the noise was no longer the only thing. This was the lesson of the monk who could not silence his thoughts. The first story had begun with a man fighting his mind. Now an entire village was learning to stop that fight. Anu asked them to place one hand on the chest. Feel how the body has carried you. Some people felt uncomfortable. They had treated the body like a worker. Feed it enough to continue. Rest it only when it failed. Ignore pain until pain became impossible to ignore. Now they were being asked to feel gratitude for the body without demanding anything from it. A woman began to cry. Her husband whispered, "What is wrong?" She shook her head. "Nothing is wrong. I did not know I was this tired." Sometimes rest reveals pain that work was hiding. This does not mean rest caused the pain. It means movement had covered it. When the village became still, grief appeared. Fear appeared. Loneliness appeared. People realized why they had stayed busy. Work had not only produced food and money, it had protected them from themselves. This is why slowing down can feel frightening. The noise outside becomes quiet. Then the noise inside becomes easier to hear. But the answer is not to run back into endless activity. The answer is to meet what appears with patience. Anu's grandmother spoke. If sadness comes, breathe with sadness. If anger comes, breathe with anger. If peace comes, breathe with peace. Do not hold one and reject another. Everything changes. The breath enters, the breath leaves, no breath stays, yet another comes. The villagers began to understand impermanence through the body. They did not need a long teaching. The breath showed it, arising, remaining for a moment, passing, again. Every breath was a small life. Every release created space for what came next. Anu's father remembered how tightly he had held work. He feared that stopping would make him useless. Now he saw the breath release itself thousands of times each day. It did not become weaker by letting go. Release was part of its strength. He breathed out slowly. For the first time since collapsing, he stopped planning when he would return to the field. He simply sat. The village practiced for 10 minutes. To some, it felt long. To others, brief. When Anu opened her eyes, no one moved immediately. Birds had returned to the trees. The wind passed through the grass. A pot boiled somewhere. The village had not changed, yet everyone saw it differently. The rest day continued. Families ate slowly. Children played without being given useful tasks. An old man told a story no one had heard because people had never had time to listen. 2 sisters who had argued for months sat beneath a tree. They did not solve everything, but they spoke without rushing away. In the afternoon, several people slept. No one called them lazy. The following week, more villagers joined the breathing practice. Then more. The practice did not remove every problem. Crops still failed, people still became ill, arguments still happened, money still caused worry. But the villagers began meeting these difficulties with less exhaustion. A calm mind does not prevent life from being difficult. It gives us space to respond without adding unnecessary suffering. Before making an important decision, the leaders took 3 breaths. Before correcting a child, teachers paused. When anger rose between neighbors, they were encouraged to feel their feet and breathe before speaking. Not everyone remembered, but even remembering once could prevent a sentence that might have lived in another person for years. Months passed. The village produced slightly less, but people became healthier. Meals became longer. Children began asking questions again. The old people sat outside in the evenings. No one measured these changes in coins. Still, everyone felt their value. One evening, Anu walked beyond the village. She climbed a hill and looked toward the mountains. A great mountain stood beneath moving clouds. The clouds came, covered the peak, then passed. The mountain did not chase them. It did not ask them to stay. Anu sat and breathed. The village behind her was learning to rest. But beyond it stood another lesson. The mountain had remained through countless storms without trying to control the sky. And the next story would begin with the mountain that never asked the clouds to stay. Anu sat on the hill and watched the mountain. Clouds moved across its peak. Some were light and thin. Others were dark with rain. For a moment, the mountain disappeared behind them. Then the wind moved. The clouds passed. The mountain appeared again. It had not chased them away. It had not asked them to remain. It had simply stayed. Anu returned to the hill each evening. She had taught the village to breathe, but she was beginning to understand that teaching others did not remove every struggle inside her. People now came to her with questions. How do I stop worrying? How do I forgive? How do I remain calm when someone hurts me? Anu was still a child. Sometimes she did not know. But the villagers had begun treating her as if she always carried an answer. This made her afraid. She feared disappointing them. She started thinking carefully before every sentence. She wondered whether a wise person was allowed to feel confused. We often suffer when other people's image of us becomes a role we believe we must protect. The strong person feels unable to cry. The kind person feels unable to become angry. The wise person feels unable to say, "I do not know." The calm person becomes ashamed of fear. A useful identity slowly becomes a prison. Anu began hiding her difficult feelings. When she felt angry, she smiled. When she became tired, she continued helping. When she did not know what to say, she repeated words she had heard from her grandmother. The villagers left, feeling comforted. Anu returned home feeling false. One evening she climbed the hill with tears in her eyes. Clouds were gathering around the mountain. "You do not have to answer me," she whispered toward it. "I only need somewhere to sit." The mountain gave no answer. That was why she trusted it. It did not expect her to be wise. It did not need her to perform. She sat beneath the darkening sky. Soon the first drops of rain fell. Anu thought about the clouds. They changed constantly. One moment white, the next gray. One moment covering the mountain, the next gone. Perhaps feelings were like this. They passed through the mind: fear, anger, joy, confusion. None remained forever. But Anu had been treating each uncomfortable feeling as a threat to who she was. If anger appeared, she believed she was no longer kind. If confusion appeared, she believed she was no longer wise. She had mistaken passing clouds for the mountain itself. This is a common mistake. We say, "I am angry," as if anger is our whole identity. I am afraid. I am broken. I am hopeless. But Buddhist awareness teaches us to look more carefully. Anger is present. Fear is present. Sadness is present. They are real, but they are not the entire self. They are clouds crossing a much wider sky. The mountain did not become dark because a dark cloud covered it. It remained the mountain. Anu breathed. For the first time, she allowed herself to say, "I am confused." The words felt freeing. She did not need to solve the confusion immediately. She only needed to stop pretending it was not there. The rain grew stronger. Anu remained beneath a tree. Her grandmother came searching for her. She climbed slowly and sat beside the child. "You left without eating," she said. "I was not hungry." That is rarely the whole truth. Anu looked at the mountain. "Everyone thinks I know how to make them peaceful." "Do you?" "No." "Good." Anu turned toward her. "Good? A person who knows they do not know can continue learning. But what should I say when people ask me questions? The truth. What if the truth does not help them? Your task is not to control whether every person feels helped." Anu struggled with this. She wanted to remove suffering. When someone cried, she wanted to find the right words. When someone was afraid, she wanted to make fear disappear. Her grandmother said, "Compassion does not always have an answer." What does it have? Presence. They watched the clouds. The grandmother pointed toward the mountain. "Do you think the mountain helps the clouds?" Anu thought. "No." "Does it stop them?" "No." "Does it follow them when they leave?" "No." "It gives them space to pass." This was the lesson. Sometimes a suffering person does not need to be changed. They need somewhere their pain can exist without judgment. The mountain held rain, mist, sunlight, snow. It did not demand one kind of weather. A calm heart is not a heart that allows only pleasant feelings. It is a heart wide enough to hold changing weather. Anu began practicing this with the villagers. When someone came with grief, she did not rush to offer wisdom. She listened. When a man said he hated his brother, she did not tell him hatred was wrong. She asked what pain lived beneath it. When a woman said meditation made her restless, Anu did not tell her to try harder. She said, "Then restlessness is what you are learning to see." The people began to trust her more, not less. They did not need a perfect child. They needed someone honest enough to sit with them. Anu also learned to rest when tired. She told people, "I cannot speak today." At first, guilt appeared, then passed. A cloud. She became angry sometimes. She noticed it. A cloud. She felt proud when people praised her. She noticed that too. Another cloud. The practice was not to destroy the weather. It was to stop building a permanent home inside each passing condition. Months later, a long storm covered the village. For 3 days, the mountain remained hidden. Some children asked whether it had disappeared. Anu smiled. The clouds only hide what they cannot remove. On the 4th morning, the sky cleared. The mountain stood exactly where it had always been, but one cloud remained near the peak. It had traveled far. It was heavy with water. Still, it refused to release the rain. The cloud believed that if it let go of what it carried, there would be nothing left of it. It did not know that carrying had already become its suffering, and so the next story belonged to the cloud that finally released the rain. The cloud rested above the mountain. It was dark and full. Wind pushed against it. Still, it held its water. Below, the fields were dry. The river had become narrow. Plants bent toward the earth. The villagers looked at the sky and waited. But the cloud would not rain. It had gathered water over distant seas. It had crossed hills and forests. With every mile, it had become heavier. At first, the cloud was proud of what it carried. The water made it large, powerful, important. Smaller clouds passed beneath it. The cloud looked at them and thought, "I contain more." But abundance became weight. The cloud moved slowly. It could no longer rise. It feared the wind. It feared the mountain. Most of all, it feared release. What will I be after the rain? It wondered. This is a fear many people carry. We hold pain because pain has become part of our identity. We hold responsibility because being needed tells us who we are. We hold anger because it gives shape to a wound. We hold possessions because they prove we succeeded. We hold old stories because without them, we do not know how to explain ourselves. Letting go feels like becoming no one. The cloud looked down at the village. The people needed rain, but the cloud told itself it was not ready. One more day, one more journey, one more reason to keep what it carried. The sun warmed the cloud. The water inside became restless. Thunder sounded. The cloud believed thunder was strength. In truth, it was pressure. Anu stood on the hill and watched. Her grandmother stood beside her. "Why will it not rain?" Anu asked. "Perhaps it believes release is loss." "Is it not?" "Yes." Anu looked surprised. Her grandmother continued, "Letting go is a loss of the form we know, but it may also be the beginning of another form. The cloud's water would not disappear. It would fall, enter the soil, fill roots, join rivers, rise again one day through heat. But the cloud could not see the entire cycle. It could see only the moment of release. This is why trust matters. We are rarely shown the whole path. We are asked to release without knowing exactly what will follow. A relationship ends. We do not know who we will become without it. A child leaves home. The parent does not know what will fill the quiet rooms. An old identity breaks. The new one has not yet formed. We stand between forms. This space can feel like emptiness. Buddhist teaching asks us to look again. Emptiness is not always nothingness. It can be openness. The cloud continued holding. The village well became lower. Farmers began carrying water from far away. The cloud saw their effort. Still, fear spoke. If you release the rain, you will become smaller. The cloud believed size was the same as worth. We often believe this too. More attention, more achievement, more responsibility, more things, more proof. We become full and call it success. Then we wonder why we cannot move freely. The cloud had no space inside itself. Every part was filled with water. There was no lightness, no room for change. That evening, wind struck the mountain. The cloud was pushed against the cold peak. It could not move forward. It could not return. The pressure became painful. A small drop escaped. The cloud became frightened, but the drop fell. It reached a dry leaf below. The leaf lifted slightly. Another drop escaped, then another. Each drop seemed like a small ending, but below each ending became relief. Dust softened. Roots received water. A child opened her mouth toward the sky. The cloud watched. Something changed. It had believed release would make it empty. Instead, release connected it to everything below. This is generosity. A gift leaves the hand, but the act expands the heart. An apology leaves the mouth, but it creates room where pride had been. Tears leave the body, but they allow grief to move. The cloud released more. Rain began falling across the mountain. At first, gently, then fully. The village ran outside. People placed bowls beneath the roofs. Farmers laughed. Children danced in the mud. Anu stood with her face lifted. The cloud became lighter. It had feared becoming nothing. Instead, it became rain. The form changed. The purpose widened. This is impermanence without destruction. Nothing remains exactly as it was. Yet change is not always disappearance. A seed becomes a plant. A child becomes an adult. A living person becomes memory, influence, and love carried in others. The old form ends. Something continues through causes and conditions. The cloud released until thunder softened. Its darkness thinned. Light entered through it. For the first time in many days, the cloud moved freely. It passed beyond the mountain. Smaller now, lighter, no longer needing size to prove its value. Below, the rain filled streams. Streams entered the river. The river carried water toward a quiet lake. The lake accepted everything: rainwater, mud, leaves, reflections. It did not choose what the sky could place upon it. Yet when the wind became still, the lake held the whole sky. A traveler standing at its edge saw this and wondered whether the heart could become the same. And so the next story began beside the lake that held the whole sky. The traveler stood beside the lake. His name was Sen. He had walked for many days. He was searching for a teacher who could show him how to become free from sadness. Sen believed sadness was the problem in his life. He wanted it removed, completely. He had lost his younger sister during an illness. Since then, every beautiful thing carried pain. A song reminded him of her voice. A yellow flower reminded him of her dress. Rain reminded him of the final week they had spent together. Sen began avoiding anything connected to her. He stopped listening to music. He avoided gardens. When rain fell, he remained indoors. He believed avoiding memory would reduce grief. Instead, his world became smaller. This is what avoidance often does. It promises protection. Then it removes life piece by piece. Sen asked monks for help. One told him to meditate, another told him to understand impermanence, a third told him to practice compassion. Sen tried each teaching briefly. When sadness remained, he decided the practice had failed. He wanted a method that would remove pain quickly. We recognize this wish. When suffering lasts, patience can sound like another burden. We want the one answer, the final lesson, the practice that will close the wound. But Buddhist healing is not usually the destruction of feeling. It is a change in our relationship with feeling. Sen reached the lake at sunset. The water was restless from the storm. Mud moved near the shore. Broken branches floated on the surface. "This lake is ugly," Sen said. An old fisherman nearby heard him. "Return in the morning," the fisherman replied. "Will someone clean it?" "No." "Then why return?" "To see what the lake does when no one disturbs it." Sen slept beneath a tree. At sunrise he looked again. The branches had moved toward the edge. The mud had begun to settle. The surface was smooth. The lake reflected the mountain, clouds, trees, the pale morning sky. It seemed to hold everything. Sen sat beside the fisherman. How did it become clear? It was allowed to settle. Sen remembered the monk who could not silence his thoughts, though he had never met him. The same truth travels through many stories. Water becomes clouded when constantly stirred. The mind becomes troubled when every thought is fought, judged, or followed. Sen said, "I want my sadness to settle." The fisherman threw a small stone into the lake. Circles moved across the reflection. Then stopped throwing stones into it. What stones? The demand that sadness should not exist. Sen frowned. "My sister died. Am I supposed to enjoy being sad?" "No." "Then what do you mean?" "Your grief is one movement. Your anger at having grief is another. Your fear that grief will never end is another. Your shame about still grieving is another." Sen looked at the spreading circles. He had not only felt sorrow, he had judged himself for feeling it. He told himself he should be stronger. He compared his healing to others. He feared sadness would destroy every future joy. Each thought disturbed the water again. The fisherman said, "The lake does not reject the storm. It becomes muddy. Yes, then the storm harms it. For a time." Sen waited. The fisherman continued, "But the lake is larger than the mud." This was difficult for Sen to believe about himself. His sadness felt like the whole of him. He woke with it. walked with it, slept beside it. "How do I become larger than grief?" he asked. "You already are." Sen shook his head. The fisherman pointed to the lake. "What is reflected there?" "The sky. Only the sky. The mountain, trees, a bird." "And the mud?" "Below the surface. The lake contains all of it." Sen began to understand. A human life can contain grief and still contain breath, memory, kindness, hunger, sunlight, curiosity, moments of laughter that do not betray the dead. The mind says, because sadness is here, nothing else is real. Awareness looks wider. Sadness is here, and the sky is here too. The fisherman asked Sen to sit beside the lake each morning. "Do nothing," Sen asked. "Notice." Sen sat. Thoughts came. He remembered his sister coughing. He remembered the medicine that did not work. He remembered feeling relieved when her suffering ended, then feeling guilty for the relief. He wanted to run. Instead, he watched the lake. A thought arrived, a movement, a memory arrived, another movement. He did not force them away. He did not follow everyone into a long story. He breathed. Some mornings the lake was clear. Other mornings, wind disturbed it. Sen began to notice that the sky remained even when the reflection broke. The lake did not need to hold a perfect image to remain a lake. This became important. Sen had believed he was healing only on calm days. If he woke feeling light, he said the practice was working. If grief returned, he said he had failed. But healing is not a straight road. A difficult day does not erase the easier days before it. A restless lake is still water. A grieving person is still a whole person. One afternoon, rain fell. Sen stayed beside the lake. Each drop broke the surface. Thousands of circles appeared. Yet the lake received them all. It did not choose which drop was allowed. Sen began to cry. He spoke his sister's name aloud, then told the fisherman stories about her, how she laughed when frightened, how she stole food from his plate, how she once carried an injured bird home. Sen had avoided these memories because they hurt. Now he saw that pain was not the only thing inside them. There was love, warmth, life. Grief had been guarding the door. Behind it stood the person he was afraid to remember. That night, Sen listened to a song for the first time in 2 years. He cried through it, but he did not stop the music. The song ended. The tears slowed. The room remained. He remained. The next day, he walked through a garden. He saw yellow flowers. His body tightened, then softened. "My sister loved these," he said. The sentence hurt. It also felt like bringing her name back into the world. Weeks passed. Sen stopped asking when sadness would disappear. A different question became more useful. Can I make room for this moment as it is? Sometimes the answer was yes, sometimes no. When the answer was no, he practiced compassion for that too. The lake taught him that the mind did not need to reflect the whole sky perfectly every day. It only needed enough stillness to remember that the sky was larger than any passing storm. Before leaving, Sen thanked the fisherman. "I came here to remove my sadness. And what did you find?" "That sadness can be present without owning the whole heart." The fisherman nodded. Sen looked into the lake. His reflection appeared among the clouds. For a moment he remembered the restless monk from a story he had once heard. A monk who fought every thought. Sen wondered what had become of him. Far away, that same monk was walking back toward the monastery where his journey had begun. Years had passed. He had learned many things. Yet as he approached the old gate, his mind became restless again. And so the next story belonged to the monk who returned to his restless mind. The monk walked toward the monastery gate. He had left many years earlier to teach in distant villages. He had guided grieving parents, angry farmers, young people afraid of the future, old people afraid of death. Wherever he went, he taught the lesson of the stream. Do not fight every movement. Let the mud settle. People began calling him wise. Some traveled far to hear him speak. The monk believed his restless days were behind him. Then he saw the monastery, the wooden gate, the mountain mist, the path leading toward the stream. Old memories rose immediately. He remembered his first months as a monk, the frustration, the shame, the fear that he would never become peaceful. His chest tightened. Thoughts began moving quickly. What if the teacher has died? What if the monastery has changed? What if no one remembers me? What if I am no longer the person they expect? The monk stopped outside the gate. He was surprised. After so many years of practice, the old restlessness had returned. A dangerous thought appeared. I should be beyond this. This thought caused more suffering than the restlessness itself. He had taught others that thoughts were clouds. Now he judged himself for having clouds. This happens even after years of practice. We may understand a lesson clearly. Then life places us in an old room, near an old person, inside an old fear. The body remembers. The mind returns to familiar habits. We believe we have lost all progress, but returning pain does not always mean we have gone backward. Sometimes it means we are meeting the same wound with greater awareness. The monk entered. The monastery looked smaller than he remembered. The trees had grown. One building had been repaired. Another was gone. A young monk approached. "Who are you?" he asked. The question hurt more than it should have. The monk had secretly hoped to be recognized. He noticed pride, then embarrassment about the pride, then judgment. The mind was building quickly. He breathed. "I trained here many years ago," he said. The young monk bowed and led him inside. The old teacher was still alive. He sat near the stream. His body was thin. His hands shook. The monk knelt before him. The teacher smiled. "You returned." My mind became noisy before I reached the gate. "Good." The monk looked up. "Why does everyone call restlessness good?" "Because it has shown you where attachment remains." The monk sat beside him. "I thought I had overcome this." "What did you overcome?" "My fear of thoughts." "And are you afraid now?" "I'm afraid that I should not have them." The teacher nodded. "A more educated fear." The monk almost laughed. Practice can become another identity. We say, "I am calm, I am wise, I am healed." Then any difficult feeling becomes a threat to the identity. We no longer fight anger because anger hurts. We fight anger because it does not match the person we believe we have become. This is attachment to spiritual progress. It is subtle. We may release wealth, status, and praise, then become proud of being detached. The self can build a home anywhere, even inside wisdom. The teacher asked, "When you first came here, what did you want?" "A silent mind." "And now?" "To be the kind of person who has a silent mind." The monk understood. The desire had changed its clothing, but it still demanded that reality obey an image. The teacher led him to the stream. The water was moving gently. "Make it still," he said. The monk smiled. "You gave me this lesson years ago. Then perhaps you no longer need it." The monk placed a hand in the water. Movement broke around his fingers. He remembered the young man he had been, serious, ashamed, desperate for peace. He felt compassion for that younger self. For years he had looked back at him as foolish. Now he saw courage. The young monk had stayed, practiced, returned each day, even while confused. We often judge our earlier selves because they did not know what pain later taught us. But those earlier selves carried us here. They deserve understanding. The monk removed his hand. The stream settled. "I became proud of knowing how water works," he said. The teacher laughed, and the water did not care. They sat together. Thoughts continued. The monk wondered how long the teacher had left. He feared the monastery changing again. He felt sadness. He felt peace, then sadness again. The mind did not become empty. It became wide, like the lake holding sky and mud, like the mountain holding every kind of weather, like the village learning that rest did not require silence. The monk understood that Buddhist practice was not a journey toward never struggling again. It was learning how to meet struggle without becoming lost inside it. The path did not end with perfection. It deepened through honesty. That evening, the temple bell rang, the same bell that had once guided a grieving traveler through the storm. Its sound crossed the courtyard. The monk listened, beginning, middle, end. For a moment he felt complete peace. Then a thought appeared. I hope this peace stays. The monk smiled. Craving had returned before the bell had finished fading. He did not judge it. Wanting, he whispered. Then he returned to the sound. This was freedom, not the absence of the old habit, the ability to see it without obeying. The old teacher said, "You have finally returned." I arrived this morning. Your body arrived this morning. What has arrived now? The part of you that no longer needs to pretend it has finished. The monk bowed. That night he slept in his old room. Thoughts came, memories moved, the future created questions. He did not fight, he breathed. Outside, the stream continued through darkness. The monastery settled. The bell remained still. Then something deeper than the absence of sound appeared. A silence that had never depended on thought stopping. A silence beneath resistance. A silence spacious enough to contain the whole restless mind. It had been waiting within him from the beginning, and the final story would begin there. These 30 stories have carried us through fear, grief, anger, regret, loss, forgiveness, rest, and release. They have shown us that peace does not come from controlling every thought. Healing does not mean forgetting what happened, and letting go does not mean we never loved. The restless mind becomes calmer when we stop fighting every feeling. The wounded heart begins to heal when we allow pain to move instead of making it our permanent home. Like the bell, the river, the falling leaf, the open flower, and the quiet lake, everything changes. But beneath all that change, awareness remains. Before you leave, write one word in the comments that describes what your heart needs most right now. Peace, forgiveness, courage, rest, or release. Your word may help another person feel less alone. And subscribe to the channel for more Buddhist stories that calm the mind, heal the heart, and guide you gently back to yourself.